What's up, guys? We got Joe Phalen here from Port City Pet, and he's out in Philadelphia, which is really close to us, not far from Jersey. So you guys are going to have to stay around for this one.
Nice. Right. Well, Joe, I appreciate you coming on.
That's it.
Oh, what's that? Oh, it's a lot of fucking talking, guys. So, Joe, before we get started, man, what's going on with your little setup over there? You do this a lot? I mean, your setup looks way better than mine. I'm like 30 weeks in.
Well, yeah, I have this little, I live actually in a cabin behind me, and I have this nice wood wall in which if someone sends me stickers, I'll put it up there. Otherwise, I do a podcast every week, so try to make it look decent. But it's nothing really compared to a 90s style bowling alley, though, to be quite honest.
It's true.
Late 80s, early 90s tops. This is than that, bud. Get some credit. Well, nice, man. Well, I don't know shit about your podcast, and maybe I should have known that before you came on here, but if it makes you feel any better, I don't listen to anybody's shit. We don't even listen to this. But
I listen.
I know you do, but you're a nerd. So I don't know shit about pine snakes, buddy. So this is actually kind of exciting for me. I'm going to ask a lot of stupid questions today. Don't judge me. But, Benjamin told you before we got started today, man, we love to hear about the beginning, and I want to hear about what made you decide to go with the pine snakes.
So I'm not very pine snake particular, but as far as I have a bunch of different species, but the Louisiana pine snake is really what caught my attention in the beginning. So I had a bunch of different North American colubrids. I had just gotten out of ball pythons, and I wanted to get into something that seemed to have a little bit more meaning behind it. And at the time, the black pine snake was turning fairly enlisted, and I knew that the Louisiana pine snake was going to be next. So I decided while I could get my hands on it, while I could get some shipped in, I would get some Louisiana pine snakes. And that's when I started working with them. And that was about 5 or 6 years ago.
All right. Nice. Well, I apologize. Ben made it seem like this was a pine snake podcast. So
wait till you hear the stuff he knows about pine snakes, man.
Well, I trust you. I trust you. Well, let's go a little further back, man. I want to hear about the early days. I mean, were you an avid herper as a kid, going out in the woods and catching snakes? Where'd you grow up, man? Give us a little something.
Yeah, so I grew up in upstate New York, and my dad actually, through the 80s and 90s, he kept reptiles. So we always had reptiles at home, and it could have been, a Burmese python or a boa or, just kind of one-offs. And then in the 90s, we started going planes. And that was honestly probably one of the only ones that was going on at the time. And it was really, as a little kid, that's when I realized that, like, hey, you can actually do this. People actually breed these, and it's a thing. And so, yeah, we used to pick up all types of random herps, some of which at that time, I mean, people didn't even have names for. It would be like, lizard or, so I would have like Calotes or, it would give you a genus or something like that. So we did a lot of experimenting, and a few heat rocks later, a few different ways to keep things. And I think now we have a much better hold on what's going on with both industry standards and keeping methods for sure. But yeah, so I grew up kind of keeping random assortments of reptiles, and my parents were always cool with it, and I caught them outside and all that good stuff.
Well, you got a partnership with your father doing this, or are you doing this on your own?
So when we had first gotten into like breeding, when I realized breeding was a thing, it was probably like snake bites days when Barchek first, introduced so many of us to breeding on a large scale like that. So I decided to go into ball pythons. My dad went into ball pythons as well. We weren't exactly partnered, but at the end of the day, when he got too old and tired to do it, he gave me his ball pythons to sell off, and I did so. But yeah, he produced some really cool stuff, but we were always separate.
It's really cool, man. I like the look on your face every time you talk about how you bred ball pythons but don't anymore. It's such a common smile that everybody gets when you have to talk about how they once bred ball pythons. Like, I know it's not shame in your voice, but you're really trying to lead on a little shame here when you say it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I respect that. And I do think that there has been times in this hobby where I discredit a lot of ball python stuff because I think a lot of it's luck of the draw. You know, especially early on, I don't think there was ever really a science behind the madness. I think it was just, hey, new gene, let's put it with this gene. I will say generally, I will pat a few ball python guys on the back. I do think it is still an art form, and I do think now that, you know, again, they have this large palette to work from of colors and patterns, it is becoming a little more of an art form. You know, I'm a line bred guy. I'm looking forward to talking corn snakes with you. But, you know, I do agree. Some ball python guys get them for the wrong reason. But we all get into this hobby at one point, and a lot of times it's through ball pythons. We can still share ball pythons a little bit. It's cool, bro. Like, don't think I'm like, you know, sitting here like telling every ball python guy it's great. I'm just saying, you know, over the years it has become a little more interesting, and some of the stuff we're doing now, even though what we saw years ago was mind blowing, nowadays, again, it's a little more of an art form with some people. So back to you hating ball pythons. At what point did you get rid of your ball python collection?
Well, I would say it was probably about 5 years ago or so when I did the bulk of moving my collection. And honestly, I had a large group in which I think caught Nido, which at the time there wasn't any legitimate testing for. So I just kind of had animals start getting respiratories and slowly you know, treated them with everything under the sun. And thousands of dollars later in vet bills, we never really found anything significant. And so I think that's what it was. That kind of discouraged me. I kept a small, you know, group to the side, just kind of hoping they would survive, and then eventually decided to get completely out of it. But yeah, that was probably about 5 years ago or so. And yeah, I didn't mean to put it in a tone in which is kind of an affliction that I got over, but yeah. I probably did. Yeah. That's okay. How I feel. I mean, that's
work. I get it. Like, trust me, every ball python, I went from bows to ball pythons, the fuck out of ball pythons back into bows and clubers and skinks to now fucking ball pythons on steroids. Smirk just comes with the territory. I probably had that smirk in my face too when I made a big switch. Like I said, I'm not kissing the ball python community's ass. I'm just saying nowadays with some of the things being done, there's a little something to it, where in the old days it was just jambling a bunch of shit up.
I thought that was the more fun part of it, is that everyone was just putting things together and calling them code DOMs and being completely incorrect on all the science. There was more of like a willy-nilly, like if something popped up, people freak the fuck out. I feel like now people are like, I think that already exists. I think a nanny's a special or whatever the fuck you guys call things.
Yeah, I will say I agree with that. You know, a lot of things, like I would say in the early days, one thing I liked about ball pythons is if there was 6 different chocolates out there, there'd be the Bell's chocolate, there was the Garcia line chocolate. I'm sure there was probably a Barcheck line chocolate.
There was.
Nowadays, 6 people have chocolates and they call it 6 different things, and one guy's charging $5,000, the other guy's charging $150. That part I'm not a big fan of. I do like the old days where there's a little more honesty in it. But marketing is marketing. I guess, you know, let's go ahead and say it. I mean, the reality is, you know, Justin Quebeca. This is, by the way, this is not a ball python podcast. We're just having a ball. We're gonna spiel it a little bit and go from there. You know, he's, in my opinion, has really perfected it in a way where a lot of other people kind of went after certain things, but he went after them from a different angle. So I got a lot of respect for the guy for doing that. You know, even like watching, he had a Wookiee video out the other day, and recently I have not been watching videos. I kind of got back into it again just for inspiration. You know, in a short period of time with the project, he really took it to another level, which I thought was really unique. He did things that, you know, it's really endless in ball pythons. Again, it's a love-hate relationship for everybody. I will never tell anybody they're my favorite species, but I will say there's more that we'll be able to do with that species than any other species. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't want ball python people thinking I'm kissing their ass. At the end, I'll make sure to tell them all to eat shit. But no, I'm just saying that, you know, it's definitely a different art form now than it was years ago. We're not just making super pastel bumblebee spinners, such and such and such.
Yeah,
like,
if by art form you mean breed it to clown, and then yeah.
Thing, man, it really, it's sad to say, and you know, Don Patterson said it in the past. There's the ball python market and there's the clown ball python market. I don't know what the next step in ball python is going to be, because right now, I mean, everyone for years knew that recessive was the way to go and markets can hold through recessives. But then this is a horrible thing to say, and I'm sure ball python guys won't listen to this because it's talking about pine snakes. What happens if a ball python guy in the industry replaces all his normals and all his pastels and all his bumblebees with a het? And now it's just as easy for him to make a clown combo as it was for him to make a super pastel combo multiple years before that. Now, in that market, will it sustain when every table is a clown, even though the joke is there's the clown market and then the ball python market? So I'm really curious because, again, you went to White Plains in the 90s, like you said, which is awesome. I lived in Buffalo and used to go there. I didn't start going to like the early 2000s, like 2002. But like, you know, we keep on seeing like, you know, Rennick was the 5-gene codon stacking king, 7-gene codon stacking king, things we never saw before. And now, again, this new mindset of it's got to be clown, it's got to be pied. Well, in a sense, in this market right now, it kind of does have to be. But 5 years from now, market, we don't really know what the direction is going to be in because the reality is every 5 to 10 years, it's a completely different market with a whole new game plan. You know, the thing with Justin, you know, Justin brings a lot of people into the hobby. And another big thing is he really brought a breath of fresh air when everything got a little stale. We kind of were all doing the same thing. We were all hemorrhaging out the same thing. And he kind of took the same genes, but like you said, he clowned it up. I don't discredit that because he definitely brought a lot of value to the market. And not only that market, in my opinion, the whole hobby has gone up in value. I know colubrids have gone up in value a good bit over the last few years, and a lot of that has to do with the Korean market and the Asian market as a whole. But like I said, 5 years from now, I don't know what ball pythons are going to be, man. It's ever changing, and it's going to keep on changing. It's going to be a fucking roller coaster, and essentially whoever comes out as the best marketer at the end of the day is going to be the one who's going to shift us in our next direction. But fuck if I know what that's going to be. That's our ball python spiel, man. Same time, like I said, they're not my favorite species. They're my favorite paint job. I enjoy the colors. I enjoy everything about them. I respect a lot about it. I know it's what it contributes to this hobby, but I like to reinvest in other things. I like to improve on my corn snakes. I like to improve on my skinks. I've got a hard on for fucking house snakes since the house snake podcast and years before the house snake podcast. Like, it's just like one of those things. And by the way, I'd like to apologize before anything. So one of our future guests in the next couple weeks is going to be Jeff Musial. And Jeff Musial said one of his favorite parts about our podcast is we don't talk over the guests. And I just had a 15-minute spiel. I didn't let you say shit. So I apologize, Jeff.
Well, you want to actually. Well, I'm speaking over you, but if you listen to my podcast, I had Jeff on where I don't believe I talked over him. So I'm kind of offended on both ends here. First of all, you didn't know I had Jeff on, and Jeff's also saying that I talk over him. So I don't know what to do.
Well, here's the thing. You got to get better at your job then, buddy, because Jeff's calling you.
Did he call my shit out?
Yeah, voice of reason there, man. Fucking, it is what it is. I mean, you know, you can, hey, man, there's always room for improvement. You can get better. We have to get better. But, okay, let's get back off of ball pythons. I don't even know what the fuck just happened there. It might have had a brain aneurysm, and I just kind of went into a tangent. So the transition out of ball pythons into what you were, again, more passionate about, because if you're not passionate about it, it's really hard to work with a species.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the whole building process of your collection. I want to hear, was it just ball pythons or was it a mix of things? Did you get one corn snake and like, holy fuck, I got to get 40 more of these things? Like, I want to hear the development, because one cool thing about, at least my favorite thing about this hobby, is when you get to start over or you want to reformat what you're doing, because every time we go back and rebuild, we all get a lot better at what we're doing. We all refine it. It looks better long term. I want to hear about your whole process, man. I want to hear about the refining. I want to hear all the stages of it. I want to hear about when the podcast came up. Why the fuck did you do that? I want the works, man.
Yeah, so I think a lot of times people say focus. I mean, particularly ball python folks for a long time, you know, they were preaching a lot of focus. But I have always felt that when I get into new things, that kind of reinvigorates my love for the hobby. I find that when I kind of get out of it and I lose momentum, it's probably because I haven't, you know, gotten a new species or worked with something new recently. So I try to keep an open mind now more than I have in the past. But first grade, I mean, I brought in a corn snake for show and tell. And I had the majority of my life, I've had corn snakes. So I've had at least one. Even through college, I had a redfoot tortoise and my corn snake, who actually, my corn snake Tony, who died just not too long ago. But I had him pretty much the majority of my life. And so, yeah, I've always had corn snakes. I had gotten to high school. I had kind of gotten a little out of it, even though I still had the snake. More into beer and girls and stuff like that. And then went to college and a little bit more of the beer and girls thing for the first 2 years. And I got out. I joined the Army. I came back and kind of fell in love with my corn snake over again. And then when I was looking up new corn snake morphs, I was like, dude, this went from Amel, Anery, Snow to there's like 50 of these things. So I went on Barcheck's website is the first thing that popped up when you put in like corn snake morphs and stuff like that. And then I started watching his videos. And then I started getting into, weirdly enough, that got me into ball pythons. So I didn't actually end up getting corn snakes at that time. Like my heart was telling me, go to corn snakes, but my dumb brain was telling me to get ball pythons. So that's what I did. And I was big on the blackhead, which is funny that that's coming around again because I was doing it in 2012. And it was real fucking expensive then. And it still honestly is rather expensive. So imagine if I've been producing those for the last, 8 years or so, that would have been nice. But yeah, I made some cool ball pythons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the Nido stuff going on, and I was in college at the time, so I was moving around a lot. And so I had broken down the collection a few different times, and then eventually just started focusing on Australian pythons for quite a while. So that's where I got like my olive python, my water python, my jungle diamond, and the different Australian stuff that I have.
If I can hop in,
yeah.
So that Australian water python. So, Dave, you don't probably know this, but Ryan and I visited Joe. It's been a little while now, but dude, that water python is awesome. It's awesome.
Oh, it's
like I immediately started looking them up, and I started talking to guys that are breeding them, and I'm like, I really want to get them, and Ryan's like trying to talk me out of it. So it's like, really wanted to do it, but we haven't done it yet, but it's on my list.
I mean, that individual is kind of a small handful of animals that you would have a good time with as far as water pythons go. So I've seen a lot of the Papuan animals and a lot of the imports. Those are supposedly pretty dreadful. This one is an Australian animal, and it's been great. It seems as though all the people who have Australians say that you have a much better chance with those animals. The other ones are a little squirrely. They'll be throwing urates, and mine still will strike at the side of the enclosure every time I walk into the room and stuff like that. But she's chill once you get her out. So yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag of experiences with them. I've just decided to get one and work with it a lot. Same with my olive python. Just get one, work with it a lot, so that I have some really cool rare snakes that are pretty chill.
Yeah.
Oh. Keep it going, man. You were on a roll there.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so pythons, that's kind of where I got to the point where I went from 1 room to 2 rooms. I have some python species, and then I have a bunch of colubrid species. And then once I got into corn snakes heavier around the same time as I was doing the Australian pythons, I had produced my actually first clutch of corn snakes. I think it was just 2014 or 13 or so. And so that's really what got it started. I started buying some like Tessera stuff. The cool thing about corn snakes is that you can pretty much stay under $200 and still create some cool projects. So I was definitely getting a lot of that stuff. I was just out of college, pretty broke, and just putting all my money into it as much as possible. So I think that it's kind of and listen, I pretty much just got what I liked. So I didn't really try very hard in trying to make it financially, make sense. But I stuck with projects that I bought, and fiscally, it doesn't totally drain me at this point. I mean, I break even easily, and I even make a little bit of money, which is cool. But So I got into a bunch of corn snake projects, and then corn snakes turned into all the rat snakes, and then rat snakes turned into even obscure little subspecies like, say, the Slowinski's rat snake. And so yeah, there's a whole bunch of rabbit holes that I've gone down, and now I've gotten on the crested gecko, gargoyle gecko, a little bit of those, but also have a Barron's racer. That's a new species that I just got, which is really cool. Shit, if I can get that thing to eat, man, that would be sweet. And Eastern black king snakes I did a lot of work with. Same thing with that. Trying to get those suckers to eat is pretty difficult. A bunch of different king snakes. I'm forgetting shit. There's just a lot of colubrids, a lot of pythons. I about probably like 3% of my collection is pine snakes, and so
Yeah.
But I do love pine snakes. It's just the species that I particularly like. There's only so many lines. There's only so many individuals, and now they're federally endangered. So I can't buy them, but I can trade with people and stuff like that. So
yeah. So one of the stories that it was interesting when we were filming over at your house. We were in one of your snake rooms, and we're like, oh yeah, this is cool, and we could hear one of the pine snakes like rattling its tail and like hissing like real crazy. It's like closed off, so it couldn't see us. But I guess it felt that we like the vibrations that we were in the room, and it's like, I'm like, is that like all the time? And you're like, oh yeah, that happens. It's like, so you took it out, and it's like just sitting there like all essed up like crazy, and I'm like, this is gonna be a real fun time, like trying to handle this thing around, and it was awesome. And so if you could talk about maybe, so you said that there's a lot that are federally endangered and stuff like that. It was so cool to see a snake that is in your collection, federally endangered, and that there's not that many of them around anyway, like outside of that in private collection. So if you want to talk about kind of the list of what you have and how you got them and how rare they are, that I think is super interesting to me. And then we can get into maybe the care.
Yeah, so there's a few different people as far as who have collected for the hobby, and I may get this a little bit wrong, so no one kill me, but there's probably only one dude who would be able to correct me, who's probably not listening, so sorry if I put out misinformation here. But John Ginter, who I believe worked for whatever Fish and Wildlife was down in Louisiana, he had collected some individuals. And then you have Terry Van Deventer, who I believe put basically signs saying Louisiana pine snakes wanted in a particular parish down in Louisiana, which is also what a guy named Theron Majors did. He lives down in Louisiana, so I think it may have been a little bit more spot on as far as locality of those animals, but they all, I'm kind of blanking on the parish right now, but if you've ever seen a locale Louisiana pine snake, it will say that parish. And so that's where the majority of our animals come from. So even the ones that are, say, Theron Majors line and the ones that are Van Deventer line, they actually may be closely related, or, they're at least from locale, but I mean, I wouldn't say locale specific, not that really matters in pine snakes or anything like that. So that's where the three groups, at least, that still survive to this day. There's still things out there like, I know Van Deventer had like a cookies and cream line. Back in the day, they used to name things all types of fun stuff. Before there were morphs, they were just making different phenotypes into fun names. So yeah, those are the three animals that we work with. And Louisiana pine snakes in general, I mean, you're looking at an animal that is in the longleaf pine forest, and that is a habitat that's only 3% of its original state right now. And then you're going to longleaf pine forest on the border of Texas and Louisiana, and that area in which the pine snake can inhabit is only 200 square miles. And then within that 200 square miles, it's just completely fragmented, in which there's small pockets in which this animal can live. So even the ones that survive on small pockets of land, in which, say, Kisatchie Forest, which is on the border of Louisiana and Texas. That's a national forest in which, is going to be a little bit of a safe haven for that habitat. But other than that, I mean, if you're looking at just finding one on the side of the road or something like that in Louisiana, yeah, good luck. And I don't know how many people have found them in Texas, to be honest. I think there may be one county in which they've been found in Texas in, the last quarter of a decade or quarter of a century.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, are there any programs out there for reintroducing the species into certain areas?
Yeah, so in particular, the Memphis Zoo is doing a lot of work, as well as I believe Audubon, which is in Louisiana, New Orleans. I believe they do work with the species, and Memphis in particular has released, what was it? It was at least a couple dozen animals last year. So they've been getting populations basically reestablished, and then they even found one that they radio tracked a year later. So they had one that survived. So which is actually like, that's a real big deal. Even though you release 50 of them, even if you find one that has radio telemetry, it's kind of a big deal, and it's showing that stuff's working. Especially for you're talking about an animal that spends the majority of its time in a burrow, so you're barely ever going to see that animal. So it is hard to track, but also it's what makes it so difficult to conserve, is because they're eating pocket gophers in this very specific habitat in which there's only so much of. And then you have things like prescribed burns, which they count on as far as driving mammals down into the burrows, driving different animals into the burrows. And then you also have, when there isn't prescribed burning and the sun isn't reaching the floor of the forest, essentially, and you're having the mammals thrive less, and they're also able to be in the open more in the brush, so they're going to be in their burrows less. So there's a lot of different factors in which makes it a really tricky situation for conserving these animals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you have something, Ben?
Well, I was gonna say, how many pine snakes do you have, and what localities do you really have? Are you working with?
Yeah, so I have a Ginterline animal which I actually just traded from West Liberty University. Zach Lockman is a great herpetologist, and he does a lot of basically experiments with animals using different husbandry techniques, whether it be things like UVB or different heating, lighting, and situation training, stuff like that. He does amazing work that gives a lot of insight on these types of animals. So we thought that it would be a fun thing in which he can try to get a different line. I'll get my line. We'll swap. And then he can also do these experiments on them and learn more about the species in captivity, since only so many people have worked with them. So it's kind of a win-win. So I have a Ginterline animal that was produced by, I believe her name's Jennifer Joseph. She's real famous in the bull snakes, so pine snakes. Sorry if I messed that up. But yeah, so that came from her. And then the Vanny Venter stuff came from Jay Jacoby, who had gotten it secondhand. I forgot who produced it, to be honest, but it is Vanny Venter stuff. I had gotten the same thing from Brad McCarthy. I think it's from the same clutch, Louisiana pine snake. So that's really all I have as far as I just have those two bloodlines. I'm working on the major stuff. Talking to Theron himself is not like the easiest thing to do. As you can imagine, it's an older guy down in Louisiana. He's not one for conversation, really, or one to help out, some young kid who probably doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But so yeah, I haven't been able to get the Theron Majors line stuff, but I'm doing my best over here.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pine Snake community, I mean, how are you guys all communicating together? Is it a Facebook page? Is there, I mean, you guys just all texting each other? Like, how is everyone letting each other know what's going on? And like you said, it's a species you can't sell, so essentially everything you make, you have a pre-barter already arranged, I imagine?
Yeah, so if we have these animals, we pretty much know. We pretty much have a short list of everyone who has them, so that if something were to happen or you breed and stuff like that, you know who to trade with and you know who has what. And Pituophis Enthusiast, I think, is one. Is Pituophis Addicts is another Facebook group. I don't post shit in there. It's just like, you're just asking. If you post something, someone's gonna try to like question you or talk shit or be like, that's not what that is. And no one's got time for that. Like, You know, if you can trace back my animals further back than I've traced back my animals, good for you. I would love to know that. But I'm also not going to like fight over it. It's like, yeah, these are the lines that I have in the hobby, and there's no reason in which they've been outcrossed, from my knowledge. So, and it's very hard to tell the difference, honestly, between all the different Pituophis. I mean, we're talking about scale counts, and even at that point, it's pretty hard. We can tell pretty much by the overall yellow coloration of this animal in particular. It's a Ruthvenii or Louisiana pine snake. But also I do have an individual that fits that cookies and cream look of Vanny Venter. So I do have an animal that's more of a cream coloration, which kind of looks more like a Florida pine or a southern pine. So they come in. There's also a lot of integrating. So you're looking at black pine snakes that have bred with southern pine snakes in Alabama in particular. So in the hobby, you may have someone say, if that black pine snake isn't black, it's not pure. Well, that doesn't mean anything at all. The phenotype is completely variable, and then also they naturally integrate. So who's to say what's pure and what's not? That's kind of the fun thing about a lot of these North American species, is they often butt up against each other, and you oftentimes have these gray areas in which we cast stones at each other from both sides of what we think's what. Some people are going to say a Eastern rat snake, and some people are going to say black rat snake, yellow rat snake, and Everglades rat snake. But they're Eastern rat snakes. It's tick for tack shit. That really doesn't matter. It's just what we call things.
Some people are a little more intense than other people. So, with the pine snake stuff, now, I've noticed since we had our garter snake interview, I've been doing a lot more research on garter snakes, and I'm finding that there's a lot of breeders over in Europe that seem to be way ahead of us on some of these projects, especially some of the line breeding. Is there much of a market, or are there people in the European market or Asian market working with any of our pine snakes?
Yeah, so there's actually a giant market. I mean, especially if you're talking gopher and bull snake morphs, there's a lot of those going over to Asia. So there's one guy in particular who produces a lot. I don't think this year, but in the last few years, we've been sending a lot of leucistic pine snakes, a lot of bulls and stuff like that over to Asia, as well as in Europe. There's quite a few bull snakes and morphs over there. It's kind of the same though as the other reptiles in the hobby, in which when you get down to things like Ruthvenii or the stuff that I work with, that's when you're getting into kind of the nerdy kind of area and kind of niche of the hobby. The morphs is where everyone plays and has fun, and normal people like get enthused about. So yeah, it's kind of the same as with, say, Morelia. I don't know if you're familiar with that community, in which has a lot of different locales, a bunch of different species, subspecies, a bunch of people with opinions. And and there's fancy folks who only want a Palmerston jungle, and there's other folks who are like, yeah, I just want that yellow and black animal over there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of communities like that in the hobby. You'll find anything that's localities or different species, you're going to get more people like that, especially when it's not a very morph-driven community. So again, the species that, like you said, it's more a hobby, something you do because you're passionate about. I don't imagine many of you guys within the community are really driven for morphs at this point, just kind of keeping things clean and healthy and making the best example of the wild type as possible.
Yeah, so as far as pine snakes, Louisiana's in particular, there are no mutations. Now, I may be, and I don't want to say this without knowing for sure, but I'm pretty confident that I'm the only one with that cookies and cream look. Most people are going for that yellow coloration of that animal that Ben pulled up earlier. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of people are breeding for more and more yellow. But you'll also see once you get too yellow, there's usually pushback. So say Jay has a bunch of black pine snakes, and some of his most popular ones are now the ones that are looking like wild types, which are ones that are, partly patterned or half patterned and then turn into a completely black animal instead of the completely black that the hobby demanded at one point. It used to be, that's trash if it's not completely black. Now people see a little bit of a nuance and they're like, oh, that's nice. That's more of the natural look of the animal. So yeah, we get a lot of pushback as far as that goes. If we go too yellow, I'm sure people will be like, you're getting way too far away from the natural phenotype. This is not a Louisiana pine snake anymore. I don't want this trash, and it will probably go back.
Well, I mean, I find that curious. I mean, but that's only from my side of things. You know, not even just the fact that I've said it before. I'm a very morph-driven person. I find morphs very fascinating. But you know, the opportunity to line breed stuff, which I talk about a lot, is very intriguing to me. You know, something like what you're saying. You're like, you know, we only want to go so yellow. I'm like, fuck that shit, man. I'm like, I want to go as yellow as possible. I want to wear sunglasses when I look at it. Like, I want to push it and see how far you can take something through line breeding. But like I said, it's a for each their own. That would just be me because I'm always driven to see how much better you can make something, even if it isn't a mutation. But yeah, like I said, just curious. You know, every market's so different, and you know, I've done a little research on bull snakes in the past, but that's as close to a pine snake conversation we'll ever get. That's really, I mean, that's truth as far as we can go with that. But okay, so within the community, then, I mean, in the United States, there are some morph-driven guys that are also bartering back and forth by trading animals. And I mean, what do you do? Are you trading pines for pines at that point? Or are you trading pines for ball pythons and other random things?
Yeah, so just like other herpers, I mean, these guys have different animals in their collections, and there is like there is some legitimate money behind it. It's not exactly ball pythons. You're not looking at thousands of dollars, but you can get up to $1,000 on a pine morph or a bull morph. It's probably very similar, once again, to Morelia. Similar kind of niche and the amount of morphs and stuff that are out there. So yeah, there's definitely a market in which guys are doing amazing things. I personally don't have any morphs or anything like that, and it's not because I'm a super snob. It's just because I haven't gotten around to it. I can only have so many things hissing and rattling and shitting constantly in my room. And so I kind of reserve it for the Rutheni. Also, the Rutheni are the smaller of the animals. So the bulls and the pines, the other pines, are going to be significantly larger. So you could be looking, you used to have those old Jersey giants, which were up here in Burlington County, New Jersey. These northern pines were like 8 to 9 feet, real big animals. So that was really like your heavy bodied, you know, what was a boa constrictor at one point, you know, before we started importing all these exotic species. That's what really set off things like, you know, colubrids, milk snakes, king snakes, corn snakes, and that stuff, because we didn't have the exotic things. I forget the question, but I'm totally fucking off it, and I apologize.
I forgot it too. I'm just listening to you talk.
You're basically saying, what do you trade for, like, if it wasn't just pine snakes?
I got a follow-up question to the question that Ben reminded me. So it's not just a bartering market when it comes to pine snakes. If there's a pine snake mutation, is that something that can be sold publicly?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's things like leucistics, albinos, aneries, all that good stuff, hypos.
So it has to be okay. So, and you just have to hold my hand through this. So mutations you can sell. Louisiana stuff, everything else, that is barter only with other herpers?
So there's different species. So the black pine snake, one species, is federally enlisted. The Louisiana pine snake, federally listed. The Florida pine snake or southern pine snake is getting very close to being federally listed. So that's something in which, you know, if you're going to be one of those guys and try to jump into a project or something, yeah, you got to do that pretty quickly. And then your bulls and your northerns are full game. Go for snakes, you know, full game. There's even things like Depi or Depi Jani. There's things in Baja California, West Coast stuff, Mexican stuff that look completely different. You know, the Depi Jani have like, I believe it's like a red head going to a yellow and black tail. It's really cool animals. So there's a bunch of different species and subspecies.
Okay, so not all restricted, just a few.
Yeah. So just 2 of them. And those 2 are honestly, they're for nerds. And only so many people are going to care.
Yeah, You don't have to call yourself a nerd anymore, bud. You can only call yourself a nerd so many times. We're gonna call you a purist for a little while, and then we'll figure out something better later.
Yeah, find a. I'm game.
Oh, cool. Go ahead, Ben. I think I heard you say something.
I was just gonna. I'm just looking through your Instagram, and I'm just trying to find cool pictures. I'm not finding a picture of and you can bring stuff in if you have something around you that you want to grab or something like that. You can. I have I see a couple pictures, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I can throw them up there. I don't want to shake any trees or anything like that, but I mean there is this. Just saying.
Hey, dude, that's that was a while ago.
It's a ball python. For all those listeners not watching, that's a ball python egg. And
by the way, bud, you look very happy. Like, are you sure you wanted to get out of ball pythons? I've never seen anybody so happy in my entire life.
Hey, man, it's a snake out of an egg. I can't be disappointed.
Yeah,
it looks like a normal though.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. So if you could go through real quick the 101 stuff of how you care for pine snakes, and I showed that little clip of you had a pair of them breeding, of the Louisiana ones breeding. If you can go through what temperatures you incubate and what you're feeding, and just go through the whole gambit, kind of educate people on some of these, be awesome.
Yeah, so it's rather straightforward and simple, especially if you've kept colubrids before. So I at least keep my colubrids at a pretty similar in pretty similar ways, and that goes for all my North American stuff. So what I do is typically 85 hotspot and then 72-degree ambient, which is just room temperature. And that is probably a little bit low for a lot of other individuals. But I also have a room in which is completely ambient, and that is usually at 82 degrees. So most of my colubrids are kept to that ambient temperature. But if I had one pine snake, I would keep it 85 degrees with the ambient room temperature, which is actually what my adults are at. My babies are at 82 degrees. Hope that's not confusing. Probably is. So 85-degree hotspot, 72-degree room temperature. And babies, I'm feeding, every 3 to 4 days. They do have a quick metabolism. You will notice this as soon as if you feed your ball python one rodent and you feed your pine snake one rodent, there will be a lot more coming out the other side and quicker of the pine snake. And so that's something to keep in mind, which is why I don't have a million of these things. But so yeah, you're feeding them every 3 to 4 days just to get them going. It's super important. You'll have males that go off in the winter. Babies, you can brumate. I don't typically brumate. I usually keep them up and try to get some size on them. Adults, I will brumate. And once they get to adulthood, we're looking at meals, every 2 to 3 weeks. And we're looking at usually about a medium rat. And that's for an adult that's, probably 4 or 5 feet.
That's a pretty good size meal.
Yeah. And then going into brumation, you cut off food for 3 weeks. You let them clear out. You let them go to the bathroom, do their thing. And then I will take them from that 85-degree hotspot, 72 ambient, and I'll just put them at room temp for a couple days. And then I'll bring them down to the basement, which is usually 50 to 55. And I usually do that from Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day, I will take them from the basement, 50 to 55, and I'll bring them upstairs, usually, 70, 72 degrees. And then I'll keep them up here for 2 to 3 days, and then I'll put them right back. For the adults, it's in the rack. They're actually all kept in racks right now. And the reason why that is because kind of what you alluded to earlier is that every time you come in the room, they get really, really worked up. And I know Jay has a lot of good success having them in cages. I think he keeps them in 3 or 4 foot cages, which is great. And I would love to do that eventually, but I need something in which I can design in a way that they're going to have enough room to burrow and get away from me and never, ever see me. So it's kind of like, yeah, I need a cage to do exactly what a rack does, essentially. So I'm just sticking with racks for now, and it's been working. So I have them actually in CB70s. I do want to eventually get breeder tubs or the breeder boa tubs. That would be great. But for right now, a 4 or 5 foot animal in a CB70 is pretty good. So that's how I'm keeping them at the moment. When I bring them up from brumation, I start pounding them with food. I'm giving adults food once a week now. So I'm doing it more often than I typically would. And then first shed, I start pairing the animals together. And these things don't really go easy or quiet into anything. So it's kind of fun. You'll hear them hiss at each other. They'll hiss at you. They'll set one another off. You'll set them off. So yeah, you'll know for sure what's going on. And then once you get breeding activity, you'll just hear a lot of scurrying around and a lot of shifting around substrate and stuff like that. They actually my female, typically before she's completely receptive, will run around the tub, and the male will just chase her, and they have those big keeled scales, and they're just rubbing up against each other, and they're hissing and they're rattling, and they're just hating each other. And then I'll take them out. I'll leave them in there for 24 hours. I'll take them out, give it another 4 or 5 days, put them back in, and then eventually she'll calm down and they'll lock. And in the beginning, the first lock that I ever got, the female was actually still moving around and the male was actually still trailing her the whole time. So they were locked up and they were breeding, but completely moving the whole time. So wow. They're really weird, restless, and a little bit combative at times, but not in a way that would hurt each other.
Wow. Yeah, it's exciting to think about, like, just their personality and their character of, like, being like all tense and hissing. When I say hissing, Dave, it's like, it's not like a hiss. It's like a deep breath and it hisses for like 45 seconds, a minute and a half, like just one long like hiss. And then you're hearing like the tail like wagging. And I mean, you're like, what is going on in this tub? Are things fighting? And like, no, they're alone. And it's like, that's how they are.
Yeah, so Pituophis, they actually have a modified epiglottis. So they have like a little piece of skin that goes up in front of their windpipe. So when they hiss, unlike other animals in which you just get kind of air coming out, they actually get vibration from that epiglottis, and it actually like projects it out. So I can hear like my adult pine snakes, I can hear them from like the opposite side of the house on a different floor. Like they are audibly very loud. Like yeah, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do like the breeding stuff, and one thing too, and some of the better breeders pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the wild. And as we all know, females want a strong male for the babies to survive. So yeah, I do like the combating in some species with females. There's a few species that I work with, and Ben also. I've always really enjoyed that part of it. People that really try to mimic stuff of what's going on in the wild too, I think really, like I said, we all find the way to do this and it works, and it's going to work differently for everybody. But God, man, when you really start paying attention to what the great guys are doing, like it really makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure along the way, talking to some of these guys, you've heard some stuff that, maybe in your head it made sense, but you had to hear someone else tell you in the process. But shit, man, I don't really want to talk about geckos. Like, do we have to talk about geckos any with them? Do you want to talk about your geckos a little bit, buddy?
No.
Geckos? Do you have a girlfriend? Is that what this is? Did she talk you in it?
No, I lost a girlfriend. That's actually how I was able to get lizards.
Okay.
Really?
The opposite.
Yeah. So it was like once she was out, that's when the 8-foot olive python enclosure went into the bedroom. I have a naturalistic morning gecko set up in the bedroom as well. A bunch of cool plants, and 2 snake rooms. I have snakes down here too. So yeah, that's really the expansion came at the expense of a relationship in which girls always trying to tell you what to do. So broke free.
I'm not going to say you're better off because she might be listening, but everything is a reason, buddy.
Yeah, it may not be true, right? I mean, better off to us. For most other individuals, questionable.
Yeah, I'm an asshole too, man. It's cool.
Yeah. Hey, man, there's choices you make in life. I've had reptiles for a while, and I haven't kept a girlfriend for quite that long. So I got to stick with what's working. I mean.
No, I mean, I have to say, I was married living in Buffalo, and this hobby just was so consuming. It meant everything that eventually the marriage didn't work anymore. The animals came first, which is kind of sad, not for me. I mean, it's still kind of sad, but no, man. And, Here's the thing. We all need someone that's compatible. I'm sure the next one's going to be better. Just like when you rebuilt your collection, it didn't have ball pythons in it. No bullshit, you know? You got this.
Yeah, I should be like, hey, I'm rebuilding my collection at the moment. Would you like to go on a date with me? It's nice to meet you.
If you'd like, we can, when we get off this, we can set up a Tinder for you if you haven't already got one already. And I'll make sure to put all the right words in there for you. We're going to find you the right one. I promise.
Oh, I've got one. It just hasn't been optimized yet. I mean, I would appreciate the support.
Okay. I'm here. All right. So let's transition to corn snakes a little bit. Unless, Ben, did you have something before we jump into corns?
Oh, can I talk about eggs and shit?
Yeah.
If you'd like.
I mean, the only I feel like you don't want me to talk about pine snakes anymore.
The big step here. Like, I know you're breeding colubrids. I know most colubrids, you know, the breeding's gonna be very similar. You tell us things about pine snakes that you find different from other species you work with, and what you found that worked better for you that maybe not everybody would think about.
Well, I think the biggest thing and why I want to talk about the eggs is just because picture like a dollar bill. That's about how long each egg is. So the species also, it's difficult to conserve because the biggest clutches, you're looking at 6 to 8 eggs. The majority of the ones that we've seen in captivity have been 3 to 5. And it's because those eggs are like, you know, as long as a dollar bill. They're really, really cool. And the babies come out big enough to eat a hopper pretty easily. So it's like you're kind of hatching, like for colubrids, you're like, I just hatched like an adult snake. That was like the coolest thing ever. You're like, this is a fully formed, doesn't want to die snake. This is really cool. So yeah, so I think that's what's really cool about them. They're huge compared to other colubrids, even the other Pituophis. And they're also the smallest species. So that's funny.
Let's go ahead and test your nerdiness.
Yes.
What is in nature that has that species making babies bigger than your standard baby? Is there a predator? Is there any evolutionary thing here?
So you would think that you're looking at maybe prey size. Maybe since they're always eating baby gophers, maybe they need to be a certain size. A lot of your baby colubrids in the wild are depending on things like ground skinks and the knolls and stuff like that. So maybe that extra size just helps them. They also don't constrict. So the adults, and I'm guessing as well as the babies, if they found a litter of gophers, they actually crush them up against the wall with their giant keeled scales. So they're pretty fucking metal. So I think you need to be a certain size in which to murder, you know, pocket gophers efficiently. So, I mean, that may be part of it too.
Oh, sure. Good answer, man. Way to nerd out for us. Oh,
any other theories? I'm open to theories.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I have no theories. I mean, fuck a pine snake is.
I had a question. So something that I've been kicking around, and Ryan and I, and we haven't really talked about it, but I've been kind of thinking the idea. I heard somebody say this once about another species, but so for the species that we keep that we have to brumate, we have skinks, we have some colubrids that we have to brumate, and we typically don't brumate the babies. But we were talking about the animals that we keep, that you have to kind of build a cycle. So one of the things is if you know you're working with something wild caught, it's very tough to get it on a different cycle. You have to keep it at whatever cycle it was on. They get taught that. So have you thought about or have you experienced anything where if you don't cycle the babies, then they don't really learn the cycle, or it gets screwed up? Like, I've been trying to figure it out if I want to do it with other animals, other species, because I'm scared to cool down. Like, if it doesn't need it to happen, why would you do it, right? But part of me is like, well, do they need the cycle even at that young age?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely helpful. I mean, I've had problem feeders that I put down for brumation and stuff like that, but to me, I feel like brumation, regardless of when it happens in the life cycle, whether they're 1 year old or 3 years old, I feel like it's kind of a hard reset button. And regardless of when that happens, you know, you can have a baby 3 years old, never ever experience anything below 82 degrees. And then I put them down in brumation and it just all clicks and they go back to, you know, they go directly to their instincts, in which in spring they're going to shed at the same time as everyone else. They're going to eat, they're going to breed at the same time as everyone else. So yeah, I haven't found that it makes a difference. Also, this is North American stuff. It's pretty pliable in comparison. I mean, I've bred them without brood mating. I've bred them in closets with no light. I've done a bunch of different experiments in which I have been successful pretty much every which way. It's really not very difficult, especially, colubrids. But you're working with some Asian stuff in which is going to be a much different story.
Yeah.
So let's talk about not brood-mating species. Because I always do find it kind of fascinating, but I know there is a trigger that's going to get something to breed, and in colubrids, everything's fucking rapid fire. Like, you put them together, you're fucking getting follicles developing like overnight, and you're getting eggs, and then boom, you're going to do it again. With ball pythons, of course, there's a lot of introduction. With boas, there's a lot of introduction, a lot of courtship. Essentially, what I'm kind of getting at with this is I like what Ben made a comment about the importance of brumation, and in my collection as a whole, and, we've talked to guys like Junior at JMG that'll take a baby Western hognose and put it right into brumation. If it's not feeding, bring it out, and it typically will feed no problem.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing any palpitating or anything that tells you anything about follicle development? Like, are you finding when you don't brumate and put them together, you're getting to eggs a lot faster, or is it taking you a lot longer? Like, what is the trigger outside of introduction that's actually getting them to develop follicles in their females?
Yeah, so I find that temperature, regardless of, even if you don't think that you're cycling, you're going to cycle at least a little bit. So I've seen pretty similar timing as far as females producing, but also I haven't done it at scale. So I know someone who does it at a little bit of a larger scale that doesn't brumate, and she has wild inconsistencies. Like, I would never do it for the inconsistent nature of it. I would never not brumate my adults. It makes it so much easier. Everyone syncs up perfectly when you take out a brumation. So I don't do any palpating or anything, not typically. What I'm looking for is that first shed. And then I start introducing. And then I can tell by the male's interaction with the female what stage we're on. So I don't have too many animals in which I just throw them in bins and I forget about them all. And I understand if you do have that, because that, that definitely changes things. When you're talking about hobbyist breeders and someone who does it professionally, I'm still on the hobbyist side. I can still have, 15 to 20 pairings and keep track of them all in my head and stuff like that. So I will watch every introduction. Males in the beginning will probably be interested in females, but females want absolutely nothing to do with them. They'll run away. They'll do all that stuff. And then you get this stage in which it's kind of a little rapey for the male, for sure. He's being a little bit forceful with it. He's moving it around, even in some of the tessera stuff, which is thought to have king snake in it. You'll get bites on the neck. You'll have males bite the neck and try to get her down like you would a skink or something like that. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of different looks you get as far as breeding goes, and that's how I can tell what part of the cycle they're in. And then when they get from that forceful stage to where the female's just chilling and the male will lock every single time with her, then, I mean, that's just go time. And I just keep on pairing until they stop locking, essentially. So there's nothing crazy scientific or thoughtful about it. Just keep on doing it until they stop. And also, I'll take the first third of the female and I'll let her belly hang. And then I can basically see if follicles are growing or I can catch an ovulation or something like that. But that's really just for my own knowledge, just to keep track and kind of have fun with it and try to guess where I am. It's not really anything that I take very seriously.
Well, I mean, you take it serious enough. And there is a science behind what you're saying, though, because the reality is, in nature, the chance of a compatible partner to come along is kind of rare sometimes. So when it does, you kind of have to put your body into hyperdrive if you plan on breeding that time, because you might not run into another male your whole season. So just your introduction alone without the brumation, I mean, that's science. Fuck, man. Okay, let's talk corn snakes for a second here, because I like the direction you're going in. Hybridization in corn snakes and not talking about it. I know not quite a few projects, but X amount of projects that we know, like you said, the tessera. Tessera project, right? Cinder, I've heard rumors about, may not be a legitimate pure corn snake. And I do think there's a few other ones over the years, and it seems like it's one of those things that it was maybe a hot topic for like 15 minutes and everyone just stopped giving a shit. It could be because we're in a new generation of corn snake breeders now, and they don't even realize the shit they have as hybrids. But what do you know? Let's talk a little.
So I like to try to use different areas of the hobby to illustrate what's going on or the history of what happened, because we're seeing the same exact thing happen in green tree pythons as happened in corn snakes in, say, the 80s. So green tree pythons, we were looking at, one species, Morelia viridis, and now it's looking like they're splitting up into at least 2 to 4 different species. And then what you're seeing is that people are still calling their animals designer. People are still saying this and that, and they refuse to accept the fact that they're breeding hybrids. So that's kind of similar in which the emery in particular, only certain people would recognize things like subspecies. So when you had a corn snake and an emery rat snake, and one was Pantherophis guttatus emery and one was Pantherophis guttatus, they said, well, Pantherophis guttatus, good enough for me. Let's put these bad boys together. And we're talking about, the 80s and the 90s. And then that information either gets lost or isn't cared about by the right people. And it seems like people just lose it. And then also you have things with dubious origins. So the original Tessera came off of a king snake ad. And I actually just sold this guy who bought the original Tessera. I just sold him a pair of corn snakes a few weeks ago. So I talked to him about it. And he had gotten them off of king snake as Tessera corn snakes. Apparently someone had also produced one in Europe. There's also a mutation of leopard rat snake that looks exactly like Tessera. And there's also a California king snake that when you hybridize it, I believe it's the Newport California king snake. When you hybridize it with a corn snake in the first generation, you're going to get something that looks like a Tessera corn snake. So, and my Tessera corn snakes are the only corn snakes that bite the neck while breeding so far. So, hey, what is that telling you? There's that is not definitive evidence, but that's enough evidence for me that they're probably not pure. And and they have a little bit different body shape than a lot of my other corn snakes, to be quite honest. But so do my corn snakes from the Keys in comparison to my corn snakes from the mainland or from South Carolina or something like that. So it's difficult. Corn snakes have wild variability. They come from the Pine Barrens of New Jersey all the way to the Florida Keys. They have different body shapes, different colors all throughout there. They have different intergrade zones with all throughout the range. They're messing with eastern rat snakes, but they're not really interbreeding from what I see. But there's also things like the Slowinski's corn snake, in which is on the intergrade zone of the emery and the corn snake. So you have different things like that also make it difficult. So yeah, most things are not pure, and I just accept it. And if someone tries to tell me, though, that something's pure, that's just laughable.
I mean, the purity argument I always kind of enjoy in this hobby and get off on, just because, like I said, it's always a revolving door of breeders in this industry. And not a lot of people know the history of the industry. And, everything's not cut and dry. I don't know. Like, I'll be honest. When I went to a show one time and I saw, I went to White Plains and there was a hybrid of a Amazon tree boa and an emerald basin. And it was neon red. And I was like, that's fucking awesome. And even with someone like the crazy things back in the day, people mixing a corn snake with a Honduran and then to a fucking gray bandit or whatever, just doing really stupid shit, but then making these very one-of-a-kind animals, which again aren't for everybody. And then even my argument in the skink community has been for years is, 10, 15 years ago, you go to a show and whether it was northern from Australia, whether it was an Indonesian, a Maruki, a Halamahara, it would all just be labeled skink. And there was a community of people that were crossing them all together way before this newer generation got in. And now we don't see those hybrids out there anymore. And it's not like they just all died off. They all probably got bred in a little bit more. But, we only know so much. It's ignorant to think that all this shit's fucking pure, no matter what species you work from, especially when it comes to species in this country. But, even, I don't know, man. I thought the blood ball python when I saw it was kind of neat. I thought the
Yeah.
ball python retic that Nerd had years ago. He had the wall back in the day where he put a ball python and a Woma python.
Yeah.
Like, again, there's a place for it. And I'm not saying build an entire collection around it, but there's something unique about, I don't want to say playing God, but mad scientists, man, like just doing some crazy off the wall Frankenstein shit.
Oh, and they're beautiful. I don't know if you this one isn't a beautiful one, but I do like this one. The carpet and the Bolins, the colons. And
Oh,
it was a dirty, shitty looking Morelia, but it's a fun one.
how dare you? How dare you?
No, but you have a Bolin's python, which everyone respects and is one of the most coveted python species in the world. And then you're just like, fuck it. Let me put this in with an IJ or something like that.
It better fucking be male, man. If it wasn't a male, like that person should get fucking strung up. Like that's the one. That's where I'm gonna put my foot down on this one, buddy.
Oh yeah, of course it was a male.
Oh yeah, it had to be. Well, heck, there was a somebody brought a sunglow boa to a yellow anaconda years ago, and the babies were super funky. Like I said, we do some weird shit, and I will say in the modern day community, we're seeing less of that. And again, it might be because there's just so many mutations now. Why mess around and do all this weird hybrid shit anymore? You know, even in
I think there's generally more transparency as well.
You know, no, I wouldn't say that.
If you select for transparency, I suppose.
That I will agree with you on. I mean, transparency is transparency. I mean, you know, I understand with Facebook, we think everything's out there, but you know, there's still some people out there with their secrets.
Yeah.
I've heard some rumors of some ball python mutations over the years that were actually Angolan crosses that made them look even crazier. Now, was that a rumor? I don't know. We're not going to throw names on it because I can't back it up with anything, but would it surprise you? Like, I don't know.
So did things come out bumpy, or you know, what's the ball to an Angolan? I mean, I think I've seen the angry ball, but how could you think that that's a mutation, or was it brought a different layer?
Crossing already mutations, like you can take a 6-gene codon ball python and breed it to an Angolan and make an angry ball with a bunch of codominant genes on it. It does pass.
Yeah.
So essentially, with what the Angolan did to the pattern of the ball python, then crossed into our more standard morphs after a couple generation, could make a very ball python looking animal with the same mutations we always see, but with a different look to it. Very possible, I promise you. I know no one's putting the time and effort into that one. My buddy Steve Beeman at Reptile Collective did make angry ball pinstripe inchies this past year, and he's been doing angry balls for fucking years. And if you looked at it, it looked like a new ball python mutation. You could see the pin, you could see the inchy, but then there was something else going on there. If you didn't see the label or didn't know what an angry ball was, you would assume it was something you never saw before. Mm-hmm. So it's possible. I think even Steve Russis back in the day when he was doing the what was the blood python? It was what's the blood in the boa or the blood in the ball called? Super Bowl or some shit.
Something like, yeah, that sounds
right.
No, there was another name for it, a catchy name. It might have been Super Bowl, but I could be wrong. He brought a bumblebee into one and made this weird, funky hybrid bumblebee animal. Hell, there's the albino. This is one you got to go look up. Have you ever seen the albino Burmese python, blood python?
Sounds amazing.
It's fucking amazing, man. Honestly, it is actually fucking legit. You got one job, Ben. You're gonna find this fucking animal. It shouldn't be that hard. You got this. But no, like I said, I'm not out running around trying to do hybrid stuff. And if I was, you can go fuck yourself because I'll do whatever the fuck I want. But you know, just don't lie about it. You know, if you're gonna do something, do it. Don't be a puss about it. Don't keep it a big secret. You know, be honest about what you're doing, and I don't see a problem with doing anything in this hobby. You know, everybody again gets brought in for a reason. Don't shit in for the reason why they came in the hobby. Ooh, man, tangent day for Dave. I don't know what the fuck's going on right now. I'm all riled up. Ben's looking for this, so we're gonna get back on this. When did you start rolling with the podcast, and what made you decide to do it one day, man?
Yeah, so I started the podcast probably almost 5 years now, And what made me start it is I was starting YouTube. I was starting podcasts. I was just trying to get myself out there because I knew that if I was going to produce animals, especially at this time when no one gave a shit about corn snakes, if I was going to produce corn snakes, I was going to have to, do the legwork and do some marketing and do that kind of stuff. And also educate people about what's out there. Because you see corn snakes at every show. No one really looks very closely at what's going on there, but there's a lot of different colors and patterns. And, of course, as you know, so I just wanted to get more word out there. And so, yeah, I started having my friends on. I started a lot of my early ones. I did drink and we got pretty fucked up. I don't do that any longer for pretty obvious reasons if you go back. But yeah, I mean, it's
this though, right? I can find your old podcast because I'll watch that in a heartbeat.
Oh, it's there, man. It's up there. It's gonna be cringy. It's gonna be cringy for sure, but it's there.
I'll embrace it, man. I'm not again. I don't watch a lot of stuff. I'll watch that just because I think there's a practical value to it.
Ah, fuck. So yeah, and then it was a good way to get in contact with a lot of different people and talk to people in which I probably wouldn't otherwise. I go to a lot of reptile shows. I do a lot of reptile shows, obviously not right now, but it's nice to have a different reason to reach out to people and talk to people because I can't just, you don't want to randomly message Mark O'Shea and just be like, hey, you want to be buddies? No, you're like, hey, I know you're coming out with a book. You want to come on this podcast and you want to be best friends. And then hopefully he says yes.
Well, I respect that. I mean, as most people know, there it is.
Dude, that's sick. It looks like in like one of those albino Brazilians or something like that. Like rainbow
it does. That early color on that. Yeah, that thing's funky. I love that head pattern, man. Now, think if you bred that back to like 20 more ball pythons, then you just say you into part of Africa where they're just a little bit larger and you have these funky looking animals and you try passing off to something new.
It's a voltamorph. Yeah, it's one of those volta locality morphs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we had this. We talked about voltas a few weeks ago. I couldn't remember what volta was.
Yeah.
But yeah, we recently, what is it? Mike Schultz recently moved out here to start working with me with all this, which is awesome because I love his skill set compared to mine. Very different background, and we really complement each other nicely. But when it comes to like the importing game and knowing the ins and outs and some of the stories, and we're gonna start bringing him on too. It's pretty exciting hearing about some of the ins and outs and what's going on in Africa every once in a while. We're even talking about deforestation over there at the moment, which is making it harder for them to collect animals. But oh fuck, we're doing this again. Back to you. So shit, man, I had like 3 follow-up things I want to say. I totally agree with you on the selfish reasons of wanting to talk to people that might not want to talk to you, and you rope and move on the podcast. Yeah. Trust me, I've had some of my idols over the years come on, and I've got a few more on my hit list that haven't said yes yet, but I'm not going to stop asking. No, and just the history of the hobby, man. Like, all the respect to the mainstream motherfuckers out there, but I don't want to hear from them anymore. I want to hear about the old school guys. I want to hear about the early days. I want to hear about shit that no one knows about. Like we've been bringing up Bob Applegate a lot, which we got to figure out where Bob Applegate lives. I'm going out to California tomorrow morning, man. Where's he at?
Oh, you are?
San Diego.
Yeah, he's just outside of San Diego.
San Diego? Hey, let me look into that. That or the other option, I'm going to send him a cell phone in the mail. I got an iPhone 9 that's just been sitting in a drawer, never been used. I'm just going to send it to Applegate and have him do it that way. Guy doesn't have a cell phone or a computer to do this on, but I want to talk to him.
That's the thing about getting colubrid guys on. I ask people and they say I don't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Like, nothing.
Yeah. What fucking year is it, everybody? Get a smartphone. They're like $20 if you get them used. Like, we need to start a charity program for old school colubrid guys where we just gift them cell phones. Ones that aren't good enough for us, but are really pretty much brand new.
Like iPhone 4s from somewhere.
Exactly. Don't even play like you don't have an iPhone 9 laying around when you just bought your 10 or some shit or your S20.
Sure.
Like, we don't have to be cruel to them. We can give them something a little better than But no, like I respect that part of it, man. And like I said, being from New York, I'm sure you and me know a lot of the same people. It's funny, I bring up Jeff Musial to people and unless they saw him on late night or unless I believe he did some programs on Nickelodeon or was talking about it. Or from the region, like people don't know that guy, but he's been at it for a long time, and he's got his own grind that might not always be a breeder's grind, but he's got his own grind that he's been doing for a long time and has been very successful with it. I don't even know what the fuck we're going to talk to that guy about. He's the
Dude,
one
all you have to do is say like 2 words and he'll go off. You're good.
Yeah.
He's the greatest guest ever.
He is, and he's a talker. He's an entertainer. He's the one who taught me to put a baby sock over a skink's head so she couldn't fight back. And it had a very rapey aspect to it, but I did it. And do I do it anymore? No, it wasn't necessary. Not that it wasn't necessary. I use tape now. A little bit of tape. Not a lot of tape, just every once in a while. I don't want to see an arm ripped off. A little bit of painter's tape. Nothing that I wouldn't put around my own mouth. Let's just put that out there. Yes, edit this out. Am I allowed to say this shit? We'll talk about that to the episode. 1 hour and 18 minutes in.
Yeah, I think Jeff has he's been in it long enough where he has some of those old school where he walked into a house with a room just filled of like satanic leaf-tailed geckos or something like that. Like someone just converted their whole room into this lizard breeding project, and like he has some fun stories. And when it comes to old school herpers, I think now it's like everyone's picked apart on their husbandry and everyone's pretty prim and proper and put together. But I mean, back in the day when someone told you that they had a Burmese python, you had to go and you had to see what the hell kind of enclosure they were keeping it in, because you know that they built it themselves. You don't know what the fuck kind of heating and lighting and security is on this thing. And it is always kind of a little bit of an adventure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, you know, in the hobby too, especially in the early days, because we have Norm McDam, I believe it is, outside of Cleveland, Ohio. He was like one of the real early guys doing any reptile breeding in the state of North Ohio. I met him through the Gale Woods. They've been friends with him for years because they've been doing it so long. But I'll be honest, so we went over to his house to see his rack systems, an absolutely immaculate collection. But we're talking melamine with all thread and nuts holding spacers in between the drawers. His heat tape must have been from 1970. It might have been the first heat tape ever. Like, I might have switched that shit out at this point. But again, how they did it, and he never changed it because it worked. Why change something that's broken? Nowadays, the nitpicking at everything, I mean, that's all social media driven, man. And again, you can't please everybody. It's just best to let it go in one ear and out the other and make them feel like they've actually accomplished something. And if they want to go above and beyond keeping the reptiles that way, they should. Our animals are kept clean and safe in environments that are suited for them, that they thrive in every single day. But if somebody calls me up and says they're going to put in a 100-gallon tank, I'm like, I wish I could do that with every single animal. We have certain animals that have all the bells and whistles, and then we have some that have what they need to be healthy and survive. That's just the way it is. Just like when you talked about getting out of ball pythons, you're lifted that same quiver when you said you use rack systems. You gotta get off that hate train, buddy. Don't worry about what you think about it anymore. Just go out there and be happy with what you do at the end of the day. That's all that matters.
Well, I think Ben probably understands a little bit of the daggers that come your way when you have YouTube videos, and especially throughout the years, YouTube videos. And yeah, man, you just learn to it's a lot easier to just not show my enclosures, not show any of that shit. Just talk about animals, take an animal out, put it back in the enclosure. Yeah. People are such a fucking pain in the ass. And it doesn't matter if it's Facebook or YouTube or anywhere like that.
We have a couple of people that, you know, like rip into us on a lot of videos. And we had one guy that was ripping into us on like every video. And Ryan at first was like, oh, I can't believe this guy, like, you know, what's going on? And I'm like, but what he's saying, like, take it out of like that it's against us. What he's saying is really funny. Like, let's be honest. He's pretty good. Like, and so then we started like enjoying what he's gonna say, and it turns into like we're like, dude, that's really funny. Like, I can't believe you said that. And like, he's like, if he doesn't comment on a video, we miss it now. We're like, that guy's not calling us the chubby Care Bear guys. Like, what the heck? Where's he at?
Yeah. Whoever the motherfucker out there that says I don't blink, get over that shit. I don't like the blink.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. You probably need thick skin, and I don't even know if I would even read my comments because I'm a very bitter guy, and I'll stalk you. Not like I'll come to your house and stalk you, but I'm going to know some things about you, and it's going to make me feel good about me. Maybe I'm going to use it someday. I don't know. Depends on your next comment, motherfucker. But Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't overthink that kind of stuff. And I could tell the way you're talking. It's like when Ben talks. Now I'm sure I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot every once in a while, especially in this podcast. But honestly, I think I'm getting to that point where I'm kind of done tiptoeing with this fucking thing. Like, I know Ben's quivering over there. Look at he's grinding his fucking teeth right now. But I
Not really.
tiptoe to try to please everybody, and like everything that we say, we have to put a disclaimer before it when you're doing social media stuff. Like, I just think that's gonna get old for me really fucking fast, and maybe I shouldn't be on social media. But like I said, this tiptoeing and like really trying to keep everyone happy all the time. I don't know. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you can work with animals all day long and look at yourself in the mirror and be happy about what you did that day, I don't give a fuck how you did it. As long as you're not like fooling yourself and neglecting them all day and still looking at yourself and saying, "Good day, bud. Good day. Well, way to be. Way to be. Don't worry about that shit. We're gonna get to it tomorrow. But you look good today, man. You keep it up." Like, I don't know, man. I just think that not so much say it how it is, but fuck, man, to spend more than a minute a day worrying about what people think about you on social media, like, it's just, I can't fucking do it, man. Like, I don't know.
Well, I think the important thing is that if you choose to be that front-facing person, I think that probably 99% of snake breeders are probably much happier and much better off just staying to themselves, because most of us don't like human beings, and that goes for me as well. But I think if you're going to put yourself out there, you kind of have to be a face for the hobby. So I try to do my best to kind of tiptoe around shit. And a lot of that is because fucking it up in the beginning, definitely, and saying a lot of dumb, crazy shit. Like, there's probably some questionable things that I've said today, especially language and stuff like that. But I've gotten like 1 million times better, man. You can imagine like a 22-year-old, like with 4 beers in them. Like, yeah, you're just saying whatever the fuck you want with your friends who are like, you're just talking shit and you act like no one's listening. Then all of a sudden someone starts listening. Then you're like, shouldn't have said that about someone's wife, or, like.
Well, I agree. Stop talking about people's wives, bro. Like, you had a power trip in that moment. You can't get that. But here's the thing, and I've talked about it, and just so everyone knows, if everybody copies my fucking idea, I'm going to stalk the shit out of you, but we're going to bring drunk history on here. Get some OGs on there. We're going to sit down. We're going to open up a bottle, and we're going to fucking talk animals, and we're going to loosen up at the end, and I'm looking forward to it. I get what you're saying. And, Ben had to take us off his page because he has so many kids on there, and I'm just not kid-friendly. Like, I am kid friendly, by the way. We all know I'm fucking kid friendly, but kids shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, I mean, if you had a niche or you had something that made you enjoy what you were doing, why not do it? If you wanted to have a couple beers and cut it up and do your podcast and maybe get a little loose at the end and talk about your buddy's wife because, you're an asshole, fucking do it, man. That's your niche, bro. Don't get away from your niche. But I don't know, man. I don't know what it was. You know what it is? I am not a social anything when it comes to media. Like, I just recently started being a little goofier on Facebook when I kind of wasn't for a while. And, since Mike's been working here, he listens to a lot of podcasts. And, I've been listening to Joe Rogan a lot. I don't want to be Joe Rogan. I'm not saying that by any means. But when you watch his podcast, he brings out the best in people because he's just so nonchalant and he's a very informative guy. Like, I think that's all it is, man. He's not where he's at right now because he gets drunk every episode, but it doesn't hurt. He's got his niche. It fucking works for him. Hate him or not, whatever. I don't care. But no, like I said, you can worry about anything you want, man. And I'm sure you get a lot more views than we do. And I promise you, not that many people are going to see you even say the wrong thing today, man. Like, maybe 170 people are going to see you say the wrong thing today. So you say that when you sleep. Under 200 people out there know you fucked up today.
That's fair. And then who's watching all the way through and all that stuff. But I think a lot of the audio crowd, because I do my podcast live and I also do it as an audio version put up later. And like the audio crowd, like you can say anything, man. They don't give a fuck. Like I'll put in like Easter eggs at the end of certain things in which I cut out of the end of the YouTube live, but I kept in for this. And it's just like those savages, they just know what's up. They're just like, yeah, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to have a special edit. I'm sorry, Ben. We're going to have a special edited version. If you notice when I'm talking sometimes, Ben writes things down. That's him saying, oh, shit, Dave can't be saying that. He writes the time down so he get it out. At the end of the year, there's some things I am very ashamed that I have said on this, but thank God for Ben. He takes that shit right the fuck out. And I joke around like, yeah, let's just take all the Dave stuff and put it all in one big thing and make a YouTube video at the end of the year, like, oh, Dave's little bloopers. But again, you know, I'm sitting here thinking about some of these bloopers, and the world's just not ready for Dave bloopers.
Yeah. It'd be like Blippy, but like the total opposite.
Yeah, might be a little much. Oh shit, man. Let's go. Let's take this another direction. Okay, so you are a hobbyist with an online presence, and you know I got a lot of respect for you years ago, knowing that it was going to help your business by going in this direction. You know, the Miguels and the Brittany Gobbles in our ball python community did the same thing before they even bred a snake. They were already out there doing stuff, talking animals, creating a market for themselves when they didn't even have anything to give the market yet. I respect that. You know,
well, keep in mind, I was already keeping and breeding animals previous to me talking shit on social media. Ball pythons, yeah. Sorry, animals was maybe a little bit too much credit.
Doesn't count. You already made that very clear early on in this podcast.
Understandable. So yeah, it's like I knew that was going to be an outlet for me to sell my animals, and I should probably say like I do it now. I think on a scale in which I could probably quit my job, as well as I'm going to. Well, I haven't told anyone this really yet, but since it's an hour and a half into the podcast and 127 people are going to listen, it's yeah, I'm opening a reptile and amphibian and plant specialty store in Charlotte. So that's what I'm working on now. So I'm going to quit my job and hopefully by spring open up that store, just working on the real estate portion of that and all that. So yeah, my goal was always to be full time. You know, I wasn't here just to dick around, which I think you guys are pretty similar, even though this is what I do, but I love it so much that I want it to fucking kill me, of course, which we all do. So yeah. And I think what's scary is the outcomes for professionals in our industry. I think what makes me the most nervous is that I don't have the best from beginning to end. This person's life happened. Maybe the Bells will be the first like success story. Truly, a lot of the older guys, like the Hank Maltz of the world, you're at this point, you're out of it. You've already been to jail. You're lonely in a basement somewhere. So it's like, that's not, and sorry, Hank Malt, if you're listening, if Hank Malt is one of the 127 people listening, I'd be real fucking impressed. And I would love to hear from you, but I don't mean to shit on that, but it's like, you know, he was like the biggest person in the industry. Yeah. He was smuggling a lot of things, but that's how a lot of the Australian stuff got into the hobby, and he was doing it for zoos. But yeah, it's like not a good outcome. Like he made a little bit of money and that's it. Or like you look at Crutchfield. And yeah, he has someone's dream, I suppose, but it's not my dream, to be honest. If I was to look at his facility, like I don't know. Yeah, I don't like I want to see a guy who's been through it all and retires with a nice house and a small collection of animals that he doesn't have to worry too much about. There's not too many good retirement stories.
Well, you know, you also are talking about a hobby that is kind of new and a profession that is kind of new. You know, the reality is when it comes to that full-time grind, there's not many people that can pull it off in this hobby, and it is exhausting. It is mentally straining. I find myself stressed out as much as I am happy, but I am so fucking happy. It's not even funny. It balances itself out. And I do hear what you're saying with that, and I'm pretty sure we backed this story up. Did you know that the Bells and Barczyk are from the same high school?
Yeah. It was like the Midwest was just huge back then, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
But could you imagine two of the biggest names in this hobby and with two of the biggest run companies went to the same fucking high school together? Like that is like small world, doesn't make any sense to me shit. And I don't even think one encouraged the other one to do it. I think they just simply went on their paths and ended up where they were years later.
Yeah,
I believe Barczyk, he went over to Mark's house pretty early on, and I believe he may have bought like some Burmese pythons or probably some colubrids at the time. But so yeah, I think Barczyk considers Mark one of his mentors.
Okay, which is cool. What were you going to say about Ben? Ben's got a story on this.
Not a story. I just know that they kind of really got into it at like separate from each other, and then found it together, which was interesting. So,
okay, so where's Charlotte? Because I know Charlotte, North Carolina. I know no other Charlottes.
Yeah, so Charlotte, North Carolina. Right now I'm in Philly. I was just in Charlotte 2 weeks ago, caught the coronavirus. Now I'm here for 2 weeks, and then I'll probably be going to Charlotte again soon. So
embrace the corona.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. I fucking love Charlotte. I lived in Charlotte for about 7 years. Before moving to Missouri, I was in Charlotte again, and then I came here. I love Charlotte. I'm sure your pet store will accommodate some of the rules they have there. There's some very bizarre rules in that region. Of course, Mecklenburg County, where Charlotte is, you can't have any large constrictors. They got, I think, the 8-foot rule in that area. But Charlotte's a very interesting area. I've always really liked it. There's some great breeders already in that area I got a lot of respect for. And I don't remember there ever being a real exotic pet store there. Anything even worth talking about, tell you the truth.
Yeah, there's one, but I mean, that market's huge. And I don't really see, honestly, as big of a community as I think that there should be. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe our store could work as a hub to start, a bigger community. Say when I lived in Dallas, Texas, we had 10 people who were like pillars of the community in that area. And there were like 30 other floaters or something, but it really made a good community and a good home full of people who were into the same shit. And I would love to have a spot for that. And I'm sure there's a lot of really awesome breeders down there. And so I'm pumped to just be a part of it.
I have some friends down that way. It does really well down in Charlotte. It's something that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit and bring up. It's these guys right here. Dave, I don't know if you know what that is.
Is it a potato bug?
It's an isopod, man. Pill bugs.
What the fuck it is? Talk about them every week. They're like
a woodlouse.
It's the craziest market. It's almost as crazy as leaves.
Yeah, that's the real market. Those dried magnolia leaves. You get a good Ziploc of those babies.
Freak.
I mean, that's hotter by the gram than most things on the market.
That's true.
I love when people find a way to make money when you wouldn't think there's money there. And again, the isopod market. Here's the thing. I'm going to reach out to my isopod guy. We're talking isopods next week. How does that sound? Like it's time to talk isopods, right?
That'd be fun.
Full fucking episode about isopods. Get ready for that.
Hell yeah.
Dude, so Joe, just to help Dave out a little bit, I mean, there's money in isopods, right? You were telling me, a few $1,000s a week, maybe more in isopods.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to disclose any of that stuff, but yeah, man, there's like an actual market there. How long will it be there? Who knows? Will it be a sustainable pet type of thing in which someone's keeping one, or maybe 12 clown, isopods? Because there's only really a few species that are functional in vivariums or terrariums. So I'm also into plants. So I've actually sold some like powder oranges and some springtails to a bunch of plant people. And you have like powder oranges and powder blues, which are going to be the ones with the fast metabolism that are always moving around. They're very protein driven. And those really get rid of a lot of waste. They do a lot of, good dirty work for you. And then you have the giant canyons that do the same, but they're in a more arid environment. And then you have a few like Scaber and Levises that are kind of like mediocre at cleaning up after things. So it's like there's really only a few ones that actually work for the function in which we decided to bring them in for. But now we're getting these people who are collecting these different morphs, right? And then you have these morphs or phenotypes or species, or like in isopods, it's different because snakes, there's over 3,000 described species. In isopods, you'll get maybe a genus, you'll get things that aren't completely described yet. You'll get things that have questionable legality, which is really interesting, which is why I've really pared down to like only the most popular ones, because those are the ones that are covered by certain permits and things like that. It's a whole thing. So it's new. It's exciting. There's also a lot of gray area. And, the reptile industry, the invertebrate industry, how we get animals and stuff like that isn't always the most transparent and legitimate way, I would like to say, or like in a way in which you know what the fuck you have. I mean, that's really the issue. Like knowing you just have this animal from Borneo, like just this pill bug from Borneo somewhere. But yeah, I like that people are into it, but there's some great, are you writing down to,
No.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm going to cut this part out. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
He's looking at rubber duckies right now, but I know what he's got going on over there.
I do have pictures of rubber duckies up, but I'm not going to. It's fine.
But, well, you want to talk a little more about your store that you're thinking about? Well, not thinking about, but you've already mentally decided on?
Yeah, so it's going to be reptiles, amphibians, and plants for the most part. It's going to be rather small, probably like 2,000 square feet or so. But we're really going to focus on the bread and butter, like you have to at a pet store, and then also the feed and stuff like that. And yeah, it's not going to be anything crazy. It's going to be a lot of animals. I mean, I produce as far as king snakes and corn snakes. And then my partner produces different Morelia and different pythons. But that's going to be a small percentage of say what we do. It's going to be a lot of our bread and butter stuff. So yeah, it's hard because I think a lot of times we as breeders think that the reptile market is different than what it actually is. So the majority of the reptile market is like the pet market, right? It's your kid with a ball python with a 10-gallon tank with a heat lamp on it, and it hasn't eaten in 2 weeks. But so you need to kind of understand that I can't just have 10 racks out on the floor and be like, yep, pick out your favorite super pastel. Like you got to kind of give the people what they need in comparison to say selling heat tape and racks and temp guns and all the stuff that we find extremely useful, but most people are going to like, eh. So it's kind of weird to kind of find that balance, right? Of things that I've written off as a breeder and simplified and gotten out of my life. And then things as a pet owner that become useful again, or like, trying to use an Exoterra with a drainage layer, with substrate, with leaves, isopod, springtails, all that stuff. It's a 100% different way of keeping, but that's how people want to keep their pets these days. If you watch a YouTube video, that's what they're getting the ideas for the enclosures for. So trying to cater to that and learn more about that. So that's kind of why I've been transitioning a lot of animals naturalistic, bioactive. I just want to know how to do all those. So yeah, it's been kind of a learning experience with different species, different plants and stuff like that. And I really look forward to getting in, different species in which we're going to try to get from the most legitimate breeders as possible. I'm going to try to buy wholesale from breeders that I trust, but also, we're going to have to probably import some crazy amphibians and some random things. So that will be fun, but it will be its own set of challenges, but I'm looking forward to it.
That's interesting. I figure you listen to our podcast because we say it all the time. I find that this market is a pet market personally, producing the numbers over here. And it's a lot of this pet money that's going back in so we can buy a $5,000 animal a week later. So it's really all the same dollar bill cycling in circles in this fucking hobby, but a lot of it is pet money.
Yeah, I mean, the base of most of your high level productions as far as reptiles go is going to be the, 1,000 pieds you produce a year, the 1,000 bananas you produce a year. Those are going to be your bread and butter, the things that sell year in, year out, $150 each in mass. I think that's what people underestimate. What I meant by people is usually breeders, obviously not people who have been around to see the cycle happen. Because, you see new people get into it every 3 years. Within 3 years, they're out of it because they thought they were going to breed and make money. But that's not really how this business works, unfortunately. It works for a few people to do it that way in a hobbyist type of, very selective way. But yeah, it's kind of bread and butter, wholesale pet level things. That's really what moves this market.
So one thing I really like about what you're talking is bioactive. I know I made my little rant earlier, but I do find the bioactive thing extremely interesting. If I were you, and it couldn't hurt, with every animal you sell during the course of a month, I would have one day set to the side where you can invite people that can come back, where you can do a whole how you can build a bioactive enclosure and do that once a month for whatever animals you sell. And maybe that'll sell a few more things off the shelf if they like the idea behind it.
Exactly. And that's something in which we're making all of our own substrates. I already do that already, and I have them available on my website. I make different arid substrates, bioactive substrates, isopod substrates. And I've been working with a lot of different mixes and using them in a lot of different contexts. But we're looking for a space in which has a back room. That back room will hopefully be things like vivarium scaping, terrarium scaping, planting techniques, different types of things like that. So that's definitely something that we've thought about and something that I haven't seen executed in a reptile context, but you see it happen in plant stores. I'm thinking like AC Moore, they have all the different crafts and stuff like that you can do. So yeah, man, it's a huge thing. And I would love to do that in the future.
That's awesome. Well, like you said, a lot of people do some things for the wrong reasons. I think you got a real fighting chance. I mean, the whole pet store idea is a scary thing. A lot of overhead, employees steal shit. Like, I'm sure you're going to be living there 7 days a week until you really get comfortable with what's going on there. But one thing you should really keep in consideration for the Charlotte area, there has been a very large shortage of rodents.
Really?
Everywhere, but Charlotte especially, I know for a fact. I lived there for years and I couldn't get them. There was very few breeders and I had to drive very far to buy them. So a little area where you can have good production on rats or mice, I think that'll be a huge draw for your pet store, considering there's very few pet stores you can buy live rats or mice from as it is. You don't have to be all retarded crazy about your markups. You can try to be fair about your prices. Because we all know even at modern day prices, there's a lot of money to be made in rodents.
Yeah, so that was actually when me and my partner linked up, and we had the money to invest in whatever which way. He wanted to do a rodent breeding facility, and I said, dude, I'm not cleaning that ammonia every single day. But we decided, hey, we're gonna do the store. If you want to buy a little piece of land, eventually, once we get going, we'll start producing rodents and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I'm excited to hear that because I didn't know that there was such a shortage in the area. He lives in the area now, so I think he's probably speaking maybe of a little bit more experience than I thought in the beginning, because it probably is a good fucking idea. I just don't want to do it for a full-time living. And I know you could probably crush it. And that goes for pretty much anyone who wants to do it. It's so hard and it's so high volume, low margin that I'm sure there's only so many people willing to bust their ass hard enough to do that. And therefore, it's open because it's a lot easier to fucking feed a snake once every 2 weeks and then throw them together in spring. It's a lot easier than cleaning those things day in, day out.
Nobody wants to breed a rat. Honestly, before I got here today, I cleaned all the big breeder tubs for my rat colony. It took me 8 hours. Not my favorite part of the day when I got to do it. But again, it's a necessary evil when you do this. And I mean, I could probably start bringing somebody in 1 day a week to do it for me, but I don't know. I'm Jewish. I'm not going to do it. If I could do it myself, I'll probably do it myself. And as long as it doesn't keep me off another project that needs my skill set, I just don't see the problem here if I got to work a little extra. But it is my least part. I mean, who the fuck wants to do rats, really? I mean, it's just not very fun. I mean, there's got to be a way of doing it, and we're always trying to come up with new designs over here, but it's just not fun. It's just not a good time. Go ahead, Ben.
Joe, so one thing that you should probably consider is helping someone spin up doing rat breeding. We kind of did that here where, a friend of mine's like, hey, I'm not working right now and stuff. And I'm like, hey man, if you breed rats, I'll buy some from you, And so if you find somebody in the area, tell your buddy, like start looking for somebody in the area that'll do it themselves and you can partner. Like, hey man, we'll figure out a way to get you like your starting colony. And then you sell to us for like a year at such and such a price. I mean, freak.
Yeah, I think that's really the focus, and kind of alluding to what you're getting to is as a reptile person, you usually like to do things all yourself, and because we like a level of control, because you kind of need it with the animals. But trying to turn it into a business, I'm trying to see where I can have opportunities to, say, hire someone. So I do have someone who cleans my collection once a week, but I also feed and do cleaning and stuff like that as well. But trying to find ways to hire people and employ people in which, you know, they have a job and I get to do less work, and then therefore I can do more reptile stuff in an area that I like, or I can expand the business in a different way. So yeah, I've been trying to get away. It sounds bougie as fuck, but I've been trying to get away from cleaning shit as much as possible, because I know how to build my website better than the person that I can hire for $9 an hour to clean shit. It's just an unfortunate fact. And I can't sustain myself off of money of just cleaning shit. So I need to find a way to make my efforts go further.
Yep. I mean, I've got a 2-year plan to never touch a piece of shit again. I mean, I've got a 2-year plan.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Well, did we peak, or do we want to pull this a little bit further?
Yeah, we might have
Go
peaked.
prod. You want to prod? You go. I don't know what we didn't talk about.
Well, we talked about your alcoholism. You hate women.
Yes.
You go to the pet store. You're single. That's appealing.
But hate women. So
Well, I'm sure there's a woman out there for you that can deal with your hate, bro.
okay.
Especially when you get down North Carolina, they're already used to it with all that redneck mentality down there.
I'll leave that there.
I'm gonna have to write that one down.
So you're gonna love Charlotte, though. I mean, I'm sure you spent a little time down there. It's a beautiful city. It's a wonderful melting pot of all these people from everywhere else that went down there. There aren't really any unique foods for the area, in my opinion. I mean, you get some neat little diners and stuff like that, but like, there's a lot of Buffalo, New York bars. Like, if you like the Bills, you have 6 different bars you can watch a Bills game. You got 6 different bars to watch a Sabres game. You can get your beef on weck down there if you know what that is. There's a Buffalo pizzeria right there by Concord, just north of Charlotte. There's a Buffalo bar downtown there. Hell, there's a Cleveland bar on this one road I used to hang out on. So it's the one unique thing about Charlotte is everyone went there. Like, there wasn't even a Charlotte at one point. Like, if you look 20 years ago at downtown Charlotte, it was nothing. 30 years ago, it was even more nothing. Now, it's a town built on banks and money, and it's a really great place to live.
Yeah. I'm excited, especially because the last time, well, I lived in Texas, which is fucking great. And then my only experience with the South besides that was Alabama. And you could say that mentality was pretty strong with those folks. So, yeah, I mean, I was lucky I was blonde hair, blue eyed, and I didn't say I was Jewish, or else, you know, there'd be some issues. So, so yeah, I'm excited to go a place that has that Southern hospitality and niceness, and hopefully isn't as racist, backwards, and full of pieces of shit. Can we mark? Do we need to mark that?
Well, people in Alabama don't have the internet, so you don't have to worry about them listening to this.
That's fair.
I have a couple friends from that area that definitely listen.
Well, they probably know what's up. So
Yeah.
they live there.
So that's the whole thing, man. If you know you're a redneck, that's cool. You know, I'm a weirdo. I'll be honest. I treat everyone gets it. I'm a fucking wild card over here, buddy. But yeah, I embrace it. It is what it is. But no, like I said, I think you're going to be successful there, because I do think that town needs a few things. And you know, I'm not saying you have to. You seem you're pretty good at life, from what I'm hearing, making dirt and everything. If you ever have any questions about Charlotte or anything resource-wise that you think could benefit you in any way, never be afraid to ask. I know all the best people, and I'm sure they'll have something that'll be good for you. Especially, I know you don't want to do import stuff, but I do have a couple friends down there that'd be happy to help you down with that if you are looking to do some import stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of inevitable. We're going to have to work with a certain amount of imports and stuff like that. So that's definitely, I will take you up on everything, man. Like, for real. When I do things, especially moving to a new place, like Philly, I picked for a certain reason, Dallas for a certain reason, different snake communities in which we can connect and we have, it would kind of suck living in the middle of nowhere, which I think that's what you do, right? I mean, most snake facilities, people who do it on a professional level are just in the middle of nowhere.
107 people in my town, and 10% of them are sex offenders. Like, I live in a small ass town, bro.
Yeah. So it's like there's only so much community you can build. Although it's nice if, say, you have an airport nearby and stuff like that. But I pick places in order to kind of at least have some favorable faces around. So I would love to meet some people down there.
Well, again, I am jealous you're moving to Charlotte. And I will say, out of all the places I've lived over the years, Charlotte was that one that I missed the most. It just seemed to have everything I ever needed. It was
you come from one of the most miserable cities in America. So, I mean...
What, Buffalo, New York?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking awful, man. Like, it's the worst. Nobody wants to live in Buffalo, New York. Like, It's just constant depression.
Crikey.
7 months of the year, football and hockey teams that can't win for shit. I know this year is a little bit different for the Bills, but I'm not going to get excited yet. They'll still lose first round of the playoffs. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, Buffalo, I will say I miss the art community there. I miss the music. I really miss the food. And that's about as far as it goes. Even the reptile community, when in Buffalo, I never really became part of the community. There was only a couple people I could tolerate. There was more that I couldn't, and it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I
up on a pedestal here. There's a lot of people that don't like me, I'm sure. Not a whole lot of people, but there's a couple out there. But no, like I said, it's just Buffalo never really felt like home.
But
I was happy to leave it and then leave it and then leave it again.
Even I remember when I don't even think I was doing shows, I was going to them, but there was like 2 Buffalo shows and there was just drama between things. And I know that pretty much happens in every little section of the hobby. But I knew that there was a lot of people that didn't get along in comparison to other places. I don't know. You're just cold and unhappy. I don't know.
That's it. We have a lot of hate in us.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, there are people that, there's people that love a lot of things. There's people that live in Alaska and love it. All the power to them. But Buffalo, I don't know, man. I got a lot of family there, and there's things about it I like, but there's never, ever going to be reason to go back there other than visiting. Like, I could never live in Buffalo again. Even if it was rock bottom and I had no choices in life, I'd find a way not to go back to Buffalo.
So did you move out of Buffalo for reptiles, or was that just a general life choice?
Well, I moved back to Buffalo to get married. I had been in Buffalo. I lived in Buffalo from like 10 to 21. And then I jumped up and moved to North Carolina because I got a shitty raise at a shitty job. Really embarrassing raise. I'd always been a reptile guy, and when in Charlotte, I started expanding, but I never had a ton of money. And then when I moved back to Buffalo, like 6 years after living in Charlotte, I kind of wanted to make a real run at it. The display cases that I was building for the shows had really started taking off. So the 5 years or 6 years in Buffalo, I did medical studies, took pills, put needles in my arm, took that $4,000 and bought a $4,000 boa. I delivered pizzas part-time, and eventually I turned it into a living. And now look at where I'm at.
Now you're behind a bowling alley.
Yeah, fucking success story over here, buddy. But no, the reptile hobby is just always something I've been very passionate about. And unfortunately, for some of the decisions I made, it was whatever it took. Charlotte was a very good time for me down there. I started doing shows with one guy who went out of business, and then I started doing shows with another guy who then went out of business. And then I started doing shows with Limey. And you'll get familiar with Limey when you meet him at the shows in the future down there, but a really good guy, very respectable, very honorable. And he started taking me to shows with him, and we did White Plains and Hamburg and all the Southeast shows. And, I had a couple animals to sell back then, but, being behind a table and getting a feel for the crowd and all that, like, that was a big moment in the whole kind of getting where I was going. But, partnership is kind of tough in this, but, I'm sure you got a good guy lined up, and I do have a couple partners still in a few things, and sometimes I haven't really held up my end of the deal, I hate to say, which is how all partnerships work. But no, I don't know. What the fuck are we even talking about, man? Is this the Dave episode? Are we interviewing Dave today?
Well, no, I think it's interesting that how many different jobs and shit. Because I did the same thing. Like out of the Army, I did security at a mental institution. That was my first job. And then I went and then I worked for Facebook, watching like beheading videos and pedophile videos, and doing the like policy guidelines. And so yeah, and then after that, I just started doing like web design and different things, and just really, I did Postmates for a full year and like totally wrecked my car and did everything. But I made YouTube videos all the time. I think it's almost unfathomable to explain like how much sacrifice you have to make in order to kind of make your dream work. And maybe a little bit different. Ben's coming from more of a perspective in which he was a little bit more established in life, I'm sure. A little bit more on top of shit. We were probably in our early 20s or late teens being fucking idiots and just scrapping it fucking together.
Yeah. No, we can't all be money bags like Ben and make it work. And education. But no, and I'm happy Ben's in the hobby. Podcast. Take Ben out of the equation. I'm just fucking off in my house, posting weird things on Facebook. But no, like I said, oh, go ahead, Ben. You want to tell us how you got here?
If I could jump in, like, no, I guess I'm uninteresting in all this, but we wouldn't have the OnlyFans if you didn't, do social media.
Yeah. No. Are you talking about my OnlyFans page, or what are we talking about right now?
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about this?
Yeah, you're OnlyFans.
Yeah. No, like I said, I do think because, like you said, money has come into this hobby a lot over the years, and money has not lasted in this hobby very long, because I do think sometimes from the outside looking in, this is, I'm trying to think of how to say this. A friend of mine came to Tinley Park one time, which is our biggest show of the year. And he walked the parking lot and he came back in. He's like, where the fuck are all the nice cars? There's no fucking money here. And I'm like, well, welcome to the reptile hobby. Like,
right. We
can all make a living, but let's not all pretend like we're living outside of our means here. And a lot of that money goes right back in. And like, I was talking to Tim Bailey at a show not too long ago, and he made a comment that for the first time maybe ever, he didn't go out and buy animals this year. He didn't have to buy new rack systems or caging. He didn't have to go get in a bigger building. He actually got to take all that money and put it in a bank account and look at it all year. Like, there is always going to be a growing pain in this, and we're always going to want more. Like, you going out and get into Rackadopolis. Okay, because you just wanted to. You couldn't help yourself. You're addicted to this, buddy. So with that being said, be in the reptile hobby. Some of us will be better at managing money than other people, but the reality is you're just always going to pour it right the fuck back in and hopefully save some money to pay for your car at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's even funny, like the amount of, because I was talking about Ben about isopods and stuff like that, but it's like, I put that money right back in the business. Like, it was the most money I've ever seen in my life, but I also put it right back in the business. I didn't really see any of it. Well, I got like new snakes and shit, and, there's manifestations of that, but yeah, that's what we do. We just buy more animals, and it's kind of dumb. I try to kind of put a little bit of a governor on myself when it comes to that stuff, but yeah, man, for the most part, it's going well. Right now, everything's going back in. I would love to get to a point where I could take like a normal middle class salary, put some money in my Roth IRA or some bullshit, and live a normal person life. I definitely want that at some point, but for the last 10 years or so, it's just been throwing shit at the wall and keep on putting money in. I think that if we're taking like this year out of the equation throughout my whole 20s, I think I did my books and I put over $100,000 into this business, and I've never made more than like $30,000, like at my day job. Like, I somehow made that money turn into, $100,000, and which is just going back into the business. And then like this year I've spent $52,000 on the business. And like, it just keeps on going up and up and up. And then it just keeps on building. But I also don't really take money out. So it's not really that fruitful. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's just, it's fun to see things build and grow and like be at a place in which you thought was impossible. Because I think, like you said, the first thing I did was I offered to basically work a table at Tinley. Like, we're talking like 2012 or something. And the whole time I was there, I was just like, how does this person set up? How do they present everything? How do they talk to customers? How do they do their business? How do they keep track of everything? And it was actually a person who actually kept books, which is very rare. So yeah, it was like really good to see that this individual made $20,000 that weekend. But also I saw that he spent probably $10,000 just getting employees down, just transportation, getting the animals down. And like, yeah, man, I realized that A, there's money in it, you can do it, but B, also it wasn't going to be easy. And there's really not as much money as a lot of people say. And a lot of the people who are doing very well also have multiple means, like say Barchek, obviously his media stuff and things like that. And I think that that's really, being a hybrid probably lends itself to kind of that long-term success, maybe. So you're not just kind of the beaten down reptile guy at the end of your career.
Yeah. Well, again, for younger guys like us, we have a long fucking time, and I promise you, man, you might get the shit kicked out of you in the process. Like, I've had my shit time, and it's inevitable in this hobby. We make every mistake in the beginning because we just get a little crazy and get a bunch of shit. A lot of us never find our direction. I made the same comment on the last podcast. Ball pythons are the gateway drug to reptile breeding. We all fucking do it. We get ball pythons because we're starry-eyed, but then in the process, we find something else we're passionate about, and then we go in that direction. Some people stay passionate about ball pythons. Some people go out and buy pine snakes and corn snakes and whatever else. Like you said, it's so fucking big, man. No one even knows what's going on in most of the hobby most of the time. Like, unless it's on your Facebook page, like, who the fuck knows what's really ever going on? So no, like I said, I like the grind. I like your coming up, and I think it's a little more humbling when you have to literally scrape every penny together and know in the process, like, you're neglecting other points of your life just to get to where you want to be with something you're passionate about.
Yeah. And I said it is, it's the most noble pursuit in life, even if you aren't going to make it or you fail in the process, is to just follow your dreams and do what you want. It's kind of cliche. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, man, like, just having something that you like this much and willing to go this far to do, as we all do, is like, it's nice to have that thing. I think a lot of people don't have that thing. I think so many people are unhappy because they don't have that thing. And some people don't have that thing in reptiles, like you were talking about. They don't have that direction either. So it manifests in multiple ways, but I think that it's also great that there's so many hobby breeders. I mean, especially ball python folks. I mean, the majority of those guys are just hobbyists who like to do it, or maybe they're looking for some weekend income or something like that. And I think that that's great that, I come to it with more of a financial mindset now, because I did, all the years of being willy-nilly and just doing it for the love of it. Not realizing that if you don't pay attention to the finances, then no matter how much you love this shit, you can be homeless, or, you can not have that extra room or not pay your electric bill and shit like that. So it's like, yeah, man, you got to pay attention to all of that stuff. But yeah, I don't think that that's really what drives me. I don't think that's really what drives any of us, or else we would have given up already. I think that's why people do give up, right? Like, it doesn't physically work out in the first 5 years or so. And then you're like, the fuck am I doing this for?
Unrealistic expectations. And, it's really funny because, like, a lot of people even the people in this hobby sometimes don't even take it as serious as they should, with, the fact that this is a business you're running and everything else. And, it's very tough to find a total package in the hobby when it comes to somebody who's good at marketing, advertising, good at breeding, good at talking to people. Some people are really good with animals, but not very good with people. And not that you have to be. I mean, doing things online and having thick skin, you're not even have to worry about people, to tell you the truth. But no, this hobby, man, like, it's just like growing any other business. If you I hate to say it like this because I'm sure I'm going to take some shit for it, not from the redneck community, but everybody else. We're selling a product at the end of the day.
Right.
And everything that goes into that product, there's expenses, time, energy. Whether I was selling a reptile or I had a business selling fucking pink flamingos that go in your front yard, which I think have a good chance of coming back again. There's a whole process in it. Like, you have to look at it as a business and treat it like a business. It is a high, and that's the tough thing with doing animal anything. Like, it's a hobby before a business. Most of the time for most people. But if you think that it just being a passion is enough, I hate to say it, it's not. Like, you got to be hitting on all cylinders to run a business, and it's not good enough that you love your animals. Like, you got to know every aspect of your business to be successful at it. So,
Yeah.
Not take away from what we do, but I mean, that's the truth behind it.
Yeah, and I mean that goes back to that's why you can't spend 12 hours a day cleaning shit all the time, because there's other business things to attend to, unfortunately. Or I wish we were able to just I think a lot of people think that you produce things and then they sell, right? Or you put them on Morph Market and they sell. Yeah, for certain individuals who do the legwork to market their animals and sell their animals pretty much through whether it's social media or just clout, I think a lot less. There used to be a certain amount of breeders in which you wouldn't really hear from, but they had a big enough name that carried them through. I think that still happens, but I feel like it must happen so much less, because I see at least, Justin now has YouTube, and he used to be that guy, right? But now he has YouTube and he's pretty front facing. Ozzy has like a great Facebook and Instagram presence and stuff like that. So it's like, I think it's less and less about the animals you produce, unfortunately, and more about marketing and getting yourself out there. But I think you can also produce, 10,000 corn snakes in wholesale, every single one of them, and make a business out of it. So there's something for everyone.
I mean, my corn snakes all came from the Galewoods. Jeff Sr. worked with them for years. I had looked at them for years. I thought they were beautiful. I never really had the drive to work with corn snakes, but goddamn did I love looking at his animals when I went to his house. The day came where he was selling everything, and I just had to have it. Like, it was just, his collection by itself is so appealing that I just wanted that. And I've never even added any other genes. I'm still working with the same 3 genes I bought from him. It's enough.
Well, they have that amazing AMG coral line, right? Or is it salmon?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And one awesome thing about Senior when he did it, most of those animals went to Germany. And even me, since I started doing it, all my shit goes to Hong Kong every year. And because of that, my market value has not fluctuated. If I decided to take an animal to a show, it's something that somebody wouldn't typically see. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's just how you want to run that part of your business. I love producing corn snakes. I love holding back the best ones and line breeding them a little bit further to make them more purple or more pink or whatever, a little more patternless, whatever direction we're going in. And I am very happy to put a price on a group and send them all out of the country and start the whole process over again. There are some species where I really do enjoy the individual sale, but with the corn snakes, it's kind of like its own little functioning side of the business, and I know where they're going to go every year, and I just plan for that every year when I do it.
Yeah, and I think that as a business owner, that stability is both so appealing. I mean, you have to get past kind of I think everyone goes through that stage where you are worried about what home, each and every animal goes to. And that's, trust me, I want every single animal to do well and go to a great home and all that stuff. But at a certain point, you got to kind of let go. Because, I mean, you get to the point where you're producing hundreds or thousands of animals. And, I mean, it's just impossible. What are you going to drive yourself crazy? And then out of those thousands and hundreds of animals, you have a percentage in which never get started, that die all the time. You kind of got to callous yourself a little bit to that stuff, unfortunately.
I mean, spillage in farming. I mean, if anybody knows anything about farming and everything involved in that, I mean, we are reptile farmers. Like, we should be doing things the way a lot of the farming communities do things. We should be doing things with medications, which a lot of people don't talk about. Even you bringing up Nido. Nobody even wants to talk about it. It's such a sore subject. They'd rather not talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, apparently it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, isn't that how all the hard subjects work, apparently? You just ignore them after a certain point. That goes for the hybrids and Nido and everything like that.
which is true. And the sad thing is, like, coming into this community, you don't think about the medical side of thing when you're looking at all these beautiful colors. You are starstruck by looking at these animals, and then when things start going wrong, no one even knows what to do. They don't even fully understand it. I saw a guy on Facebook post an animal that his ball python died on him. And he's like, what is going on? This animal was perfectly healthy. Why would it die? But it had like a hide box or something in it. And the whole hide box was caked with saliva and all the bedding was stick to it. And I'm all like, I didn't want to say anything, but it was like, okay, well, clearly you had some kind of upper respiratory going on and that killed your animal. But people don't know what we're looking for. And so you know what you're looking for. And a lot of times it takes things going wrong. Like the first time we get a mite. Mm-hmm. Nobody in this hobby has never not had a fucking mite. It is inevitable. If you're going to be a reptile guy, you're going to accidentally get one eventually. And it's not a matter of you having it. It's a matter of what you do about it once you have them. That's everything in this hobby. Things are going to go wrong. But what are you going to do when things start going wrong?
Right. Yeah. And that's really where I feel like the modern day hobby does a very good job, especially with the mites and stuff like that. I think, I hate to see someone get roasted when something bad happens or they have a bad transaction, but I feel like that accountability has actually helped us in comparison to say, you couldn't go to a reptile show in the early 2000s probably without finding mites and stuff like that. There's still some in the Southeast and stuff like that where you go to a couple tables, but that is becoming more and more rare over time.
See, you say that, but I see it in the Northeast just as much, and I see it at the California shows, and I see it at the Texas shows. Like, the reality is, this is something you really can't get away from. And like you said, I mean, the BOIs and fauna back in the day, you remember those scary times? Like, that shit stuck, man, and that's there forever.
And you Google that shit, and those people still come up.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
You can contact people run fauna and be like, hey, this isn't even true, and they won't even take that shit down. Like, man, that stuff's it is in stone. And now, yeah, you get your Facebook things every once in a while, but a few screenshots get passed around, and then we're so ADD, we move on to the next fucking hot topic and not worry about the previous one. Like I said, it's look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. If you're happy with what you're doing, good. If you're an asshole scumbag that can still look at yourself in the mirror, maybe you should be working with animals.
There's some of those. I think the ego.
So much, buddy. I am so sorry about this episode, buddy.
the ego gets enmeshed with the love for animals for some reason. Just I don't know, Tiger King shit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Tiger King is one of the saddest things ever, man. One of the most unique and best documentaries ever. I hate to say, like I don't think a world has ever been so committed to a documentary like they were to Tiger King. Now, the downside of Tiger King is, of course, our late, great Ben Rennick.
Yeah.
When you go look up his trial, it is the fucking Snake King murder, whatever bullshit title they put on it because of this fucking animal documentary that was so popular. It is now spun into that. Mm-hmm. And everything about it really is tragic. And to be perfectly honest, what's going on right now in current events, Dateline NBC's contacting me, Chase Baker, and other people in the hobby. What is it? Court TV's contacted us. I don't want to be a part of it. And the sad thing is, I do. Look at this fucking mustache, bro. I'm going to be a meme in 2 minutes and not in a positive way. No matter what the fuck I could say in a positive manner towards Ben and what he did in this hobby and his importance will be overshadowed because I'm a fucking goofy looking fucking dude who's the typical guy you'd assume would be in this hobby.
So, and they won't do you any favors. They're going to steer you towards that. They're going to steer you off the bridge. They want you to probably look a little off kilter or something.
In a place for this face, and I really hate to say it, and I really do love Ben. I miss the shit out of him. I'm not the guy. Like, I really do not want my face tied into an already stupid fucking, I don't know. I everything about it really makes me uncomfortable. The Court TV thing, I'm glad things are out there, but that fucking name, man, is going to bother me forever.
It's kind of a double-edged sword because you want his story to be out there, and he was such a guy with such positive impacts across the whole hobby. And it's like, it's a shame when someone takes this piece of the herp hobby and tries to kind of make news out of it and stuff like that, because it means so much more to the people in the hobby than it does to someone watching court TV on a Saturday at 2. You know, it's so much different, man. To them, it's just snake guy in Missouri, like whatever. I mean, not the kid, you know.
Clickbait, you know that. I mean, it's just all clickbait. It is what it is. You only have so much control over things, and you know, come on, man. And I talked to Chase Baker about this the other day. Who the fuck doesn't want to be on Dateline? Who the fuck doesn't want a chance to be on TV to say they're being on TV? But in this circumstance, I just don't think this is where I want to be on TV. I have talked to a couple people in the hobby. I'm trying to find the right guy, the right face, somebody who knew him, someone picture perfect so we don't all look like a bunch of goofy sons of bitches. But
the only guy who had a reputation that good was Ben. That's the only person who was that clean. Yeah.
He was the fucking cleanest guy in the goddamn hobby, man. Like you said, he did things right. Everything about the company, the white racks, everything was always so spotless. Like
so bleached, man. That was like a wet dream in the 2000s, you know.
It was immaculate.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, it's a tough thing, and I'm sure we'll find the right guy. And I really hope eventually they don't call the wrong guy who says yes just because he wants to be on TV. But yeah, like I said, it's just tragic and sad, and man, this fucking clickbait bullshit. It's really souring Tiger King for me, and that was like one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I love Tiger King. 2020 was such a unique year. Like, we keep talking about it, man, but holy fuck, we'll not have another year like this for a while. Like, this was a crazy year for the hobby, for the world, everything. Too much information this year, man. I can't even process it. I forget Kobe died every once in a while, and who the fuck forgets that?
Yeah, I think especially for reptile breeders, because we were going through all these life changes, but also the market was going through some crazy changes. Like I had a really steep drop off, and then I had a really, really high spike in demand, and then I kind of leveled off, and then it became non-existent. Now it's kind of coming up again, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. Like, what is going on? And there's COVID. Now I have COVID, and it's like, you know, I don't know. It's a crazy fucking year.
Yeah. And, you know, like you said, the market this year, which I really love the market this year, because first podcast we ever did was Babu, and I said, we are fucked. We are married. There's not going to be shows. How are we going to make a living? There goes the hobby. And, yeah, we had our low months, and then it fucking exploded. And I really hope everybody saved a little bit of money from that explosion. And like you said, it leveled out, but wasn't horrible. And then it hit a little bit of a low, and then it's going to slowly pick up again, because now we're back on our normal track again. Our seasonal changes that comes with when you make your most money and least amount of money. I don't like to work between July and September in reptiles. I don't like to do shows that time of the year. Attendance is way down. People are outside enjoying themselves. It's sunny. It's warm. Everyone's happy. No one wants to go to a trade show. The diehards will, but not everyone else. We're about to be right back into that rhythm again. Like, we talked about this, even like the plant market, like trimmings from plants went up from like $10 to $100. Like, anything that you could do in your home went up in value this year.
Yeah, now there's people selling small nodes of plants for hundreds of dollars.
It's fucking crazy, that kind of thing. And a lot of people wouldn't even think it, but you know, I think it was Ryan McVay was telling Dave about it originally when he brought it up to us, that, you know, we all got stuck in our house and we needed a purpose, and we needed something to care for, and we needed maybe the idea of working from home. Because that's another big thing. I was listening to PBR, and they were talking about the housing market. And when people are looking for houses now, they don't want places in cities. They want something outside of the city. They want something with an extra room or two, so they could set a gym up in their house. They could set up a business in their house. Outside the city shit boomed for a little while there, because everyone looked at COVID like how fucked they were, and they tried to adapt to the new situation. But again, this was a weird year. I'm hoping that we're not going to have a string of years like this. We'll see what happens with the presidency. I figure we've gone through all topics. We can talk politics now, Ben. You want to talk some politics, buddy?
I'm running out of room on my notepad.
Yeah, we're going to have to write down a lot of numbers.
But no, like I said, fucking 2020, man. But, you know, it had its ups, it had its downs, but I don't know. I enjoyed 2020 personally. I'm having my best breeding year ever because I'm not out fucking about every weekend at a show. I'm focusing on the animals more. I'm pairing more. I'm rotating more. I don't know. 2020 was good for a lot of people in this industry, especially. I know it's not been good for everybody in the world, but in this hobby, I don't think too many people suffered during this.
Yeah. And well, I think what I miss out on is, at least personally, is the interactions with people at shows. So I'm not like a very social person, but that like one Saturday where I have 8 hours where I talk to like a bunch of little kids about corn snakes is kind of awesome. And it kind of keeps me going and makes me remember why I do this. So I do miss that aspect of it, but also it's like, I don't know. You always had, especially when I was first getting into it, it was when ball pythons were seen strictly pretty much as an investment. And everyone was like, it's recession proof because the recession was still happening and stuff like that. I guess. But it goes through a lot of ebbs and flows. But I mean, I don't know. If you're into it, you just keep a licking and keep on ticking. I mean, it's just, fuck it. It's going to happen. You can't really get down about it.
Yeah, the recession thing of ball pythons, and man, I really hate it because I know I repeat conversations on here sometimes, but, a lot of people look at the fall of the banana ball python, and it dragged a lot of things down with it. And I don't know what was going on with the economy at that point. And, of course, with any sex-linked gene, that was the variable that no one ever kept into consideration. The day we started making males, they went from $15,000 to $30,000 down to just a couple $1,000s within maybe a year and a half. And it dragged the GHI down with it. Matt Lear with the GHI was always a really curious way to manage a project because, with any project, you can manage it your own way. And with Matt, he would only sell females, and he'd only sell them to people that he liked. There were certain people in the hobby he didn't even want to have the gene.
Oh, but he didn't get back to me. I reached out to him back in the day. Well, that's why I went blackhead, because he wouldn't answer me back when I asked him for a GHI.
Man, in GHI, I don't know which one I like better. I really love both the genes. I think they're both very powerful. But he only sold you females. And then there was like a 4 or 5 year period where you just watched him make every combo you could imagine. And you just had this one fucking female that might make a clutch in a year or two. And I think that took a little excitement out for some people, but just like what they did with the stranger ball python, the same thing. They only released females. They wouldn't release males. Then they started releasing males. I understand it's really good for your company, and I really shouldn't hate on this because I'm sure we're going to have a ball python mutation. I might take, the Matt Lear approach and only sell females, but I feel like that market, it might have been a little more steady if everyone was out there doing cool things with it and really didn't get down on themselves from not being able to do shit because they weren't given the resources to do anything. But again, the GHI fall off. It could have had something to do with that. It could have been because Banana took it down and they were both the exact same price 1 week. And then they were both fucking rock bottom a week later. Like I said, there's always a reason when things happen in this hobby. But people don't look at anything other than the animals. No one looks at the economy, the housing market, the price of gas, who's our president. Like, people don't always look at the variables. They just assume it's because people crash markets. Some people are forced to crash markets because they have to put a roof over their head. Things aren't selling as fast as they want, so they do whatever it takes, and everyone follows their lead. Mm-hmm. You don't have to follow someone's lead when he goes low on a price. He only has so many fucking animals, and when they're gone, everything goes back to normal again and steadies out. But there was a while there in the hobby. If a bumblebee was $150 and somebody on a Tuesday posted it for $120, it became $120 forever. And it only took one person to do that. But that one person only had 3 fucking bumblebees to sell. Why did we all change what we were doing? Because that guy had 3. Like, no sets of rules in this hobby, man. You know that. We are playing by our own fucking rules, and we don't even know what the fuck those rules are.
Yeah, I think it's I watched a documentary on the card industry, like, sports cards, like baseball cards and stuff like that. And what they did was they print off a bunch of cards, they trickle some out. And I feel like that's kind of how ball pythons are. They get a project, you produce a good amount of them, you start a breeding colony, you trickle out your females, so you still have 3 years, you produce them. By the time they get down to $1,000, you have enough to wholesale them to someone, and bam, there you go. You made out like a bandit. Everyone else did okay. and then life goes on. You get onto the new project.
You know what that sounds like to me? Sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about number one rule of investing. Do not invest in a depreciating asset. What is every single mutation of a snake? For the most part, depreciating asset. Every year it goes down, it goes down, it goes down. There's some exceptions where, Justin took a spot nose and brought it back up. Great. Does that always happen? Are you depending on one person in the industry to boost your market and stuff like that and your investment? I don't know. That's what irks me, is that, like, if you're looking at it as an investment, investing in a depreciating asset, it's silly. Like, put your money somewhere else if you're looking for money.
Yep. We're not going to get into this too much because actually one of our episodes coming up is with Justin Quebeco, and we are going to be talking the economy of the industry, marketing, and all that good stuff that really kind of brought him to where he's at right now. So I don't want to ruin that one by saying all the shit that's on my mind about Justin with this. But like I said,
I'm not referring to him, by the way, or disparaging the way people do things. I'm just saying my observations. I
refer to him. Who the fuck has done more marketing or ran a business in the way that he did? The guy before that was Ralph Davis, and it was still a little different on what's happening right now, where Ralph kind of came in on the early days of combos and was getting things in from Africa, where Justin has never imported an animal. Justin has never started with a new mutation. He built his entire business, and he might have afterwards, but he built his whole business on building on recessives, seeing things in something that other people couldn't, and taking pre-existing genes that people had given up on and did something with them.
And also being a nice human being at the same time and being personable.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of things that you need to hit on to run a business, and where back in the day you could be an asshole and have that one-of-a-kind $80,000 steak and make a living. That's not the way this works anymore. Like, you can still be an asshole. We got our assholes out there, but even some of those assholes aren't even that much of assholes anymore. Like, I know he's not listening, but everyone used to say Brock Wagner, real big piece of shit cop. You don't have to edit that part out either. I hang out with Brock all the time. There was a Brock that maybe some people didn't like back in the day. I think he's a great guy. I love hanging out with him. I love talking to him. We've been chit-chatting a little more recently. Now I am Jewish, and he did buy me dinner, so that might be one of the reasons I'm being so nice right now. But no, again, a guy that might have had a certain reputation at one point for whatever reason. Not that he reinvented himself, but maybe he just got a little more comfortable with what's going on around him. Maybe he wanted to become more community based. I don't know. I mean, next time I talked to him, I'll ask why he was an asshole at one point. Maybe he'll.
There's also like a lot of money involved at that time, and a lot of deals with certain individuals, and there were so many problems just stemming from money. And I don't even know the half of it, right? Like, I know the very surface because I was pretty new at that time, and it's like, I can imagine it's crazy.
No, for sure. Money, man. Money is controlling. And this is a very money motivated group. Like you said, you're buying something in hopes of making money at a lot of times. When you see someone else fucking with your wallet, you're going to lose your goddamn mind. That's in any aspect in any business. So no, man. Like I said, it's definitely a different hobby, and like you said, you've had your eyes on a lot of things over the years because you came up around the same time I did. Got to see the stories online, read the BOIs. You were probably on King Snake, going on the forums on there, looking at pictures of ball pythons and whatever else. Like, it's just it's very ever changing. And I really don't want to give Justin too much credit because there's some people out there like, come on, man. I'm not going to say this because I respect the guy, but get something out of your mouth when you talk about Justin. I wanted to make a penis reference. I didn't just then, but
now you did.
Now I did. I can't help myself. The guy came in and did something that no one else did, and no one else did before him. And it was a draw to a lot of different people that didn't even know the hobby existed, and it brought new people in. And again, they weren't all ball python people. His picture of one of his ball pythons was on like Good Morning America when he had the 3 smiley faces on his pied. Like, it's just, in my opinion, Justin has done it differently, and he did it his own way, but he did it in a very professional manner that you know what Justin should do? he should open up a college for being a professional reptile breeder and have like 6 or 7 classes, and you only have to go for 1 quarter, and we're all going to be better off for it because, again, it's a business. You have to run it like a business to be successful. I'm not taking away from the animal care or anything like that. You still have to have a love and passion for what you're doing. Why you're not in ball pythons anymore? Your passion wasn't there, and if you would have kept doing ball pythons, where the fuck would you be right now? You might not even be in the hobby. You might have burnt yourself out. The old school guys burnt themselves out because maybe they stuck with a species they didn't care about anymore, but it was paying their bills. Just fucking enjoy it. Like you said, I don't want to ever have to do anything else in my life, man. This is happiness right here. This is the best thing in the world.
Yeah, and I think that some people like it for the animals, some people like it for the colors, the patterns, the different animals that you can have. I mean, I like the business aspect of it. I like the social aspect of it. I like, the social media landscape, as, crazy as it can be, still interesting. I mean, like everything that involves the culture, the business, and the animals is like, I don't know. Yeah, you got to hit all those sections and you got to enjoy all that stuff, or else you may become miserable.
Yeah. No. Well, hey Ben, you want to talk? I was so sorry, man. Kind of just hijacked this from us.
I know. I was like, man, I just want to ask about some isopods or something, and I'm like, wow, this is
a little bit. I feel like
slightly different podcast.
Yeah, this was fun. I loved everything about this. I like having real conversations, man. This is a good fucking time, man. No reason to hold your tongue because you're afraid of people. Have fun, man.
I like just industry insider bullshit is like the most satisfying. I know having a podcast talking to, everyday individuals, you may want to get some good information out there, but bullshitting can just be so much more fun.
I enjoy some good bullshit every once in a while. Hey, Ben, you got some bullshit? You want to talk about animals, Ben?
Got some straightforward questions.
Yeah. I like how I'm like, hey, Ben, we should talk. And then we just talked over him and ignored him. And now I'm doing it again.
No, I mean, I'm good. There's things I wanted to interject, but it was just going. So,
did you raise your hand? Because I didn't see you raise your hand once, fucker.
No, it's all right. You're on such a good roll. I don't know. I think that it's been 2.5 hours. I think the people have probably enjoyed, watching us. And I don't know,
Ben wants to go to sleep.
I mean, I have just a ton of other things to do too, but I know Dave's freezing out there. And so, yeah, I always enjoy the time sometimes when the person on the podcast is talking and Dave like gets a look on his face and I know what that looks for. Like there's a raccoon coming up or there's like, meth heads walking in, and like, those are the funny times to me too. But it's just inside jokes that Dave and I have kind of together. But anyway, so yeah, I think that it's been a fun conversation. I think you have some really great ideas for your pet store. I enjoyed, us being able to hang out. Well, we hung out once really, and to be able to interact every once in a while is always fun. And sharing a good cheesesteak together, like it's a bonding moment.
That is the good thing about you guys is not only you came over to look at the collection, but you brought food, and it was incredible. I appreciate that so much. Going back to the giving us food is definitely works. Just not paying for something is just feels so good. And it tasted good as well.
Yeah, John's roast pork, baby. Anyway, but yeah, I think that I think this has been fun. I don't know, Dave, if you want to. Do we want to keep on talking? You want to do some more, or is this a real peak moment?
On this, I mean, I still have a couple more hours of pairing to do tonight. I mean, I've got work to do. Plus, I got to fly out in the morning. I told you before, disclaimers are bullshit. But rednecks, I don't hate you. I love drinking with you. I want to drink with you more. Justin, if anybody tells you about what I said about maybe a penis reference, don't take it serious. We still want to have you on the show. Yeah, like I said, I had a blast. Honestly, I like when shit gets in a weird direction. So this made me happy. We'll not go here again for a few episodes.
It wasn't as weird as we've gotten though. I mean, there's been some pretty weird conversations. So
yeah, we've got it weird. But Well, that's it for me, man. I peaked and Ben peaked clearly because he wants to go and call it quits. So, Ben, why don't you go ahead and just send us off, man?
Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on and for helping us interview Dave a little bit, and we appreciate all that. We really do enjoy it, and I don't know that it's really that public. I guess maybe some people will hear this and know that it's public that you're moving out of the area, which stinks, but it's really cool, and I'm glad to see that you're feeling better from Corona. It's going around, but. So thank you so much for coming on, and make sure everybody that's listening or watching, hit that like button, subscribe to us, and comment down below. Let us know some of the topics that we're talking about. If it's something that you're involved with and want to learn more or have questions, reach out to us.
Or if you have something that you think can really pierce Dave's armor, and he's really talking a lot of shit about not giving a fuck what you say about him. So
just for the record, the gay card is overplayed. Time for something new, guys.
Yeah, well. All right.
It's a classic.
It is, yeah. All right, so thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next one.